Hello there, and welcome to another quiet journey through the world around us. A place where science becomes a lullaby and wonder drifts like mist across the mind. Tonight, we travel across the oceans, not to race across their surface, but to float gently within their rhythm, letting curiosity and calm move together, like water meeting the moon. Close your eyes if you wish. Let your breathing find the same slow tempo as the tide, in and out. Each inhale, the sea draws a little closer. Each exhale, it drifts away again. You are breathing with the planet itself. The Earth is often called the blue world, and from space, it looks exactly that. A sphere of shimmering sapphire light. Nearly 3/4 of its surface is covered by water, flowing and shifting in endless motion. If you could hold the planet in your hand, you'd find that the thin crust of land is just lace around the edges of an immense ocean heart. Every drop of water here has a story older than any civilization. The glass of water on your bedside table may once have been part of a cloud drifting over the Pacific, a wave rising against a coral reef, or a raindrop falling through the leaves of a prehistoric forest. Nothing in the ocean is ever truly lost. It only changes form, moving from sky to sea to ice to stream, in a circle so vast it humbles time itself. As you listen, imagine floating above that endless blue. Beneath you, the light ripples and fades into deeper shades. Turquoise, then indigo, then darkness. Sunlight reaches down only so far before it dissolves into mystery. Beneath that calm surface lies an entire world, millions of species, mountains taller than Everest, valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, and rivers that flow through salt water instead of soil. But before we dive into those wonders, let's linger here at the surface, where sky and sea touch so gently they almost forget which one they are. The wind drifts across the water like a whisper. Each wave folds into the next, and the boundary between air and ocean becomes a soft shimmer, impossible to separate. This is the world's great mirror. The sea reflects everything: clouds, moonlight, even our own thoughts when we stare too long. It has always held that power to make us small in the most comforting way. Here, there are no straight lines, no urgency. Only curves and motion, and the hush of something far larger than us, breathing slowly, steadily, without pause. As we float together through this story, remember, the ocean is not a single place. It is the body of the planet itself. Every stream, every rainstorm, every tear ever shed, all find their way back here. It binds continents, it shapes the weather, it cradles life. And somehow, through its vastness, it makes everything feel still. Let that stillness reach you now. Let your shoulders soften and your mind grow quiet. The same rhythm that moves tides has always moved through you too. The rhythm of breath, of pulse, of rest. Tonight, we begin not with noise, but with silence disguised as motion. The kind that feels endless, gentle, and alive. The kind that tells us, you are safe here. You are part of this rhythm, so rest and listen. The sea is breathing. And with every breath, it whispers, welcome home. If you've ever stood at the edge of the sea and felt the wind against your face, you were breathing the ocean's exhale. The air around you, the invisible comfort that fills your lungs, owes its life to the water stretching beyond the horizon. More than half of the oxygen on Earth drifts upward from the sea, born not from forests or fields, but from tiny drifters that float between the waves. They are called phytoplankton, microscopic wanderers, each smaller than a grain of dust, yet glowing with ancient purpose. Under sunlight, they bloom by the trillions, turning the upper ocean into a living lens of green and gold. Each one, though unseen, performs a quiet miracle. Through photosynthesis, these drifting cells split carbon dioxide, drink in sunlight, and release oxygen, not in gusts or storms, but in countless soft sighs that rise, dissolve, and become the breath of the planet. If you could shrink yourself down and drift among them, you'd find a world shimmering like liquid glass. The light filters through the surface, bending into ribbons that dance across invisible fields. Every glimmer carries energy, a message from the sun that traveled 93 million miles to touch this place. Here, the air you breathe begins as sunlight captured by water. It's humbling to imagine that something so immense, every inhalation you take, depends on being so small. They are the first gardeners of the world, tending an ocean meadow that never sleeps. When they die, they fall like snow, carrying carbon down to the seafloor, burying it for centuries, shaping the balance of our atmosphere. Above, new generations rise to the light again, keeping the rhythm alive, a breath that began long before we existed and will continue long after. Sometimes satellites in orbit catch their bloom from space, great swirls of turquoise and jade unfurling across thousands of miles. It looks like art painted directly onto the sea, but it's life, countless cells catching the sun all at once. From the sky, the planet looks as though it is breathing. Inhale, the bloom expands. Exhale, it fades into deeper blue. Even the clouds above owe them gratitude. Each time water evaporates from the ocean, it carries tiny particles released by these plankton. They seed droplets, gather moisture, and form clouds that will one day return as rain. The cycle closes quietly, the ocean gifting not only air but weather, rhythm, and renewal. As night falls over the water, many of these organisms sink slightly, retreating from the cooling surface. The day's sunlight has fed them enough. Now the ocean rests. In the dark, other creatures rise, glowing jellyfish, drifting fish with lanterns for eyes. And the water becomes a slow-motion galaxy. The same world that gives breath to the sky now shimmers with its own starlight below. There is no boundary between above and beneath, only the steady exchange. Oxygen for carbon, light for darkness, life for rest. When you take a slow breath now, notice how easy it feels. Somewhere a wave is breaking, somewhere. A plankton cell has released a single bubble of oxygen that will rise, merge with millions of others, and eventually reach you. Every breath we take carries a trace of the ocean's patience, a reminder that the act of living is shared, not owned. And as you rest, let that thought settle deep inside, that you are breathing the sea's memory. Its pulse flows through every living thing, whales, forests, you. Even the gentle rhythm of your lungs echoes that endless motion. So tonight, as the sound of the waves softens and your body begins to drift, imagine those countless invisible lives at work beneath the moonlight, turning light into air, silence into song, and water into breath. The ocean is exhaling, and you are part of its sigh. Let the air fill you, calm and steady. Let your mind float on the same current that carries clouds across the world. The sea is breathing through you, and through everything that sleeps and dreams beneath its gentle waves. If you sit beside the ocean long enough, you begin to notice that it never truly stops. Waves come and go, but beneath them lies another rhythm, slower, wider, more patient. This is the movement of the tides, the quiet heartbeat of the earth. Every shoreline on the planet rises and falls in time with forces older than the continents themselves. Twice each day the sea gathers itself and reaches higher up the sand, as if taking a long inhale. Then, just as gently, it releases that breath, retreating toward the horizon. This pull and release has continued since the first moon circled the newborn world, an unbroken pulse echoing through deep time. The moon's gravity is the drummer of this rhythm. Though it hangs 250,000 miles away, its attraction tugs at the water everywhere on Earth, raising a subtle bulge that follows its orbit. As the planet turns beneath it, that swelling travels around the globe, washing over coasts and estuaries like a slow cosmic wave. The sun joins the dance too, adding its own smaller pull. Together, they create spring tides when their gravity aligns, and neap tides when their forces lean away. Nothing about it is sudden. Everything happens in grace and patience. Imagine standing barefoot where the water meets the land. The tide edges toward you, a small wave, then another, each one slightly farther than before. Minutes later, the sea is at your knees, whispering around your legs. Then, without hurry, it drifts back again. It's as though the planet itself is breathing beneath your feet, exhaling its enormous calm through the shifting line of foam. For countless species, this gentle motion writes the schedule of life. Crabs scuttle out when the tide retreats, digging homes in the wet sand. Clams and anemones open as the water returns. Entire forests of seaweed lean one way, then the other, following the ocean's slow respiration. Even on distant shores, where people sleep behind walls of stone, the tide still moves unseen under the moon, marking hours more ancient than any clock. In many places, humans once built their lives a rhythm. Fishermen learned to launch at the turn of the tide, when currents were soft. Villages timed their harvest of salt, their prayers, their songs, to the same hidden metronome. Poets wrote of longing that rose and fell like the sea, and healers listened to the rhythm of the waves to soothe the heart. Perhaps they sensed what science now confirms, that our bodies, mostly water, answer quietly to the pull of the moon. If you listen closely, you may feel that pull even now, the steady in and out of your own breath, the quiet swell in your chest. It mirrors the tide exactly, small within the great, yet belonging wholly to it. Every inhale is a miniature high tide, every exhale a gentle retreat. You are part of the same pattern that moves oceans and stars. Sometimes during rare alignments, tides climb higher than ever before. They slide into city streets, fill marshes, awaken forgotten lagoons. Yet even then, there is no violence in their arrival, only inevitability. The water goes where gravity guides it, then drifts away again, leaving behind the scent of salt and the sound of gulls tracing circles in the air. At night, when the moon glows silver across the water, the tide shimmers like breath made visible. You can almost hear it, a long sigh drawn across the surface of the world. It reminds us that motion and stillness are not opposites. They are partners, exchanging places in an eternal rhythm. So let that rhythm move through you now. Feel the slow pulse beneath the noise of thought, the calm beat that never rushes. With every rise and fall of your breathing, you are keeping time with the sea, a melody without beginning or end. The planet's pulse continues, steady and soft. High above the dark horizon, the moon rises silent, steady, impossibly bright. It seems far away, a pale coin balanced in the sky, yet its touch reaches every drop of water on Earth. Through empty space its gravity stretches, delicate as a thread of silk, and the oceans lean toward it. That leaning is invisible where you stand, but across whole continents, the sea lifts by a few feet, a slow unfurling that begins the tide's long journey. Long before humans could name gravity, they felt this pull. Fishermen watched the moon's changing face to read the sea. Ancient travelers carved calendars in stone, marking when the tides would climb highest under a full or new moon. They called it a blessing, an unseen hand guiding the waters home. Even now, satellites trace the same motion that poets once described as love, a gentle attraction that never ends. Picture the Earth and moon from far away, two companions circling a common center, the smaller tugging softly at the larger keeping the smaller close. Between them, invisible tides of force flow like breath. Where the moon passes, the sea swells. On the far side, another swell rises in sympathy. Our planet is drawn into an elegant rhythm, a dance measured not in seconds, but in centuries. When moonlight touches the water, it becomes a language of light. Silver ripples chase one another toward the shore, each wave carrying a fragment of that glow. You can almost imagine the sea reaching upward to meet it, stretching, shining, responding to its quiet partner in the sky. Every crest is a whispered reply, every trough a patient pause. For the creatures of the coast, this conversation is life itself. Tiny crabs time their emergence to the moon. Sea turtles hatch and crawl toward its reflection. Certain corals release their eggs on the same night every year, guided by its pale command. The pull of the moon is written into their bodies, just as it is written into ours. A newborn's heartbeat, a resting breath, a tear sliding down a cheek, all move through water drawn by the same ancient gravity. Stand on the shore at night, and you'll feel it too. The ground seems still, yet the air carries a faint expectancy, as if the whole world were listening for something just beyond hearing. The water gathers, pauses, and begins to climb the beach, one smooth motion following another. It's not rushing, it's remembering where it belongs. You watch the edge of the foam trace a silver line, erase it, and draw it again, like a signature, written endlessly by the moon's invisible hand. There is peace in knowing that this pull never ceases, even when clouds hide the moon, even when storms roar across the surface, the connection holds. Gravity does not sleep, it hums quietly through the fabric of everything, binding sea and sky, body and breath. In that hum lies a promise, that motion will always return to calm, that every reach will become a release. So as you breathe now, imagine that thread stretching from you to the moon. With each inhale, the sea within you rises. With each exhale, it settles again. You are part of the same tide that moves continents and hearts alike. Let the thought drift through you like moonlight on water. The pull is gentle, but it is forever. Daylight and ocean have always shared a quiet understanding. When the sun climbs the sky, the water opens its surface like a page of glass, ready to receive whatever story the heavens choose to tell. Clouds glide across it, and the sea repeats their shapes in trembling silver. At dawn, light spills over the horizon in pinks and amber gold, and the waves catch each color as though tasting it before letting it fade. By dusk, the same water deepens into indigo and violet, swallowing the sky's last fire until only stars remain tiny sparks, scattered upon a mirror that never breaks. To look across the sea at such moments is to see the world doubled, one sky above, one sky below. No other place on earth gives back the image of heaven so completely. Even the calmest lake cannot match the slow-breathing shimmer of salt water stretching to the curve of the planet. Every ripple bends the light a little, turning the reflection into a living mosaic. Nothing stays still. Nothing is ever lost. Sailors once used that mirror to find their way home. They watched the color of dawns, the angle of stars, the glint of moonlight on the swell. In those patterns they read both direction and reassurance. The sea told them that even in vastness guidance existed. It whispered that what is above is also within reach below. Science explains it simply: light scatters, particles refract, but understanding the process does not steal its wonder. Each photon that leaves the sun travels across space, slips through our thin veil of atmosphere, and meets a single wave crest before bouncing into your eyes. That tiny journey carries the warmth of a star, the cool breath of wind, and the rhythm of water fused together in one fleeting spark of color. Multiply that by billions upon billions, and you have the soft glitter that seems to dance endlessly across the surface of the sea. At night, the mirror darkens but does not disappear. It changes its language. Moonlight sketches silver threads along the waves. Starlight scatters like dust across black silk. Sometimes the water glows on its own, lit from within by drifting plankton that shine when disturbed. Each swirl of your hand could leave a trail of blue fire that fades as quickly as a sigh. It is as if the ocean remembers daylight and decides to dream it back in miniature. There are places where the boundary between air and water nearly dissolves. The still lagoons before sunrise, the calm coves after rain. Here the reflection becomes perfect, so perfect that horizon vanishes, and you cannot tell where world ends and its echo begins. Standing there feels like floating in eternity, sky above, sky below, and you a single breath held between them. Even the sound changes, voices fall away until only the soft popping of bubbles and the distant call of birds remain. For the listener, lying in darkness now, picture that endless mirror stretching from shore to horizon. Imagine the soft roll of color, the gleam of clouds drifting across both heaven and sea. Each time you breathe out, a ripple moves across the surface. Each time you breathe in, the water smooths again. The ocean and your body find the same rhythm, the reflection and the reflected, moving together. This is why the sea calms the restless mind. It offers back the world exactly as it is, without judgment or demand. When you look into it, you see not only the sky but also yourself softened and simplified, part of something wider. The water does not hold. It only mirrors, reminding us that thoughts, like waves, are meant to pass. Stillness is not the absence of motion, but motion so gentle it becomes peace. So, as night gathers and the tide turns once more, let the mirror close over you like a slow silver curtain. The stars above shimmer again in their twin below. Somewhere far out, a wave folds into another, carrying moonlight across its back. You are floating between both skies, now one, real, one remembered, breathing in time with the planet, shining softly in its sleep. Beneath the surface calm of the ocean, something vast is always moving. It cannot be seen from the shore, yet it travels farther than any ship, faster than any wind. Across every sea, invisible rivers flow, streams of water, weaving through water, each with its own temperature, color, and direction. They are the secret veins of the planet, carrying heat, salt, and life around the world. If you could strip the ocean of its surface and watch from above, you would see spirals of motion like fingerprints etched across the globe. Warm currents slide north from the equator, ribbons of blue fire looping past continents. Cold streams slip silently back toward the poles, balancing what the warm ones give. Together they form a single, endless circuit, the ocean's own circulatory system, pulsing with the slow patience of centuries. Near the surface, these currents are driven by wind, by sunlight, by the rotation of the Earth itself. Every breeze that brushes the sea leaves a signature on the water, setting it gently in motion. As the planet turns, the paths bend, curving east and west, wrapping around islands and coastlines like threads pulled through cloth. Where currents meet, they twist together, creating eddies that spin lazily for months before fading back into the flow. Nothing is still, nothing is wasted. Deeper down, where sunlight has never reached, it slides beneath the lighter surface waters like a shadow thousands of feet thick, cold, and dense. This is the deep current, born in polar darkness where seawater freezes and grows heavier with salt. It sinks, then creeps along the ocean floor, tracing a path that circles the Earth. What begins as ice near Antarctica may not rise again for 1,000 years, yet it will one day surface somewhere warm and bright, carrying the memory of distant winters within it. For the creatures that drift with these currents, the world is both vast and intimate. A jellyfish carried by a warm current might travel halfway across an ocean without ever knowing it has moved. Plankton ride invisible escalators of water, rising and falling with the day, spreading life wherever the current goes. Even giant whales, ancient navigators of the deep, follow these same liquid roads, guided by gradients of temperature and taste. Scientists map these motions using floats that send quiet signals through the dark. Each device rises, breathes out its data, and sinks again, joining the timeless conversation of the sea. From thousands of such voices, patterns emerge: the swirl of the Gulf Stream, the slow curl of the Kuroshio, the icy creep of the Antarctic flow. Viewed together, they reveal a living architecture, oceans linked like organs in one enormous body. The beauty of these hidden rivers is not only their scale but their subtlety. They move without roar or color, yet they shape everything above them. They decide where storms are born, where fish gather, where deserts bloom or rain falls. A slight shift in one current can warm an entire continent or cool another. The ocean whispers and the climate listens. Now imagine yourself suspended just below the surface, eyes closed. Around you, the water is alive with motion so gentle it feels like breath. You do not fight it, you drift. The current slides past your hands, tracing the path it has followed for ages. You are part of the same invisible river, carried forward without effort, weightless and safe. Each heartbeat matches the rhythm of the moving sea. Somewhere above, waves still rise and fall, but down here there is only flow, slow, steady, eternal. It is the soundless engine of the planet, the pulse that connects every shore to every other. And though you cannot see it, you can feel it, a soft tug in the dark, a promise that everything, everywhere, is joined. The ocean moves, and through it, the world breathes. The ocean does more than cradle life. It carries warmth, like a memory quietly, invisibly shaping every season, every wind, every cloud that drifts above. Without this movement of heat, the world would be a planet of extremes, frozen deserts at the poles, and burning silence at the equator. Instead, the sea smooths the difference, passing warmth from one hemisphere to the other, stitching the planet together in balance. It begins at the equator, where sunlight presses down strongest. There, the sea shimmers like molten glass, heated by day after day of direct light. Warm water expands, becoming lighter, and starts to drift away from the heat. Driven by wind and the gentle spin of the Earth, it begins its slow journey north and south, carrying summer with it. What begins as a tropical current may travel for thousands of miles before releasing its stored warmth into the air. These currents are not hurried. They move at the pace of patience, sometimes only a few miles each day, but their reach is vast. One stream, the Gulf Stream, flows from the Caribbean across the Atlantic toward Europe, delivering warmth that softens winters and keeps harbors ice-free. Without it, cities like London and Oslo might rest under frost for months longer each year. Even from half an ocean away, you can feel the ghost of these warm waters in a gentle breeze. Deep beneath them, colder currents run in the opposite direction. Water that has given up its heat grows heavier and sinks, sliding back toward the equator in long shadowed paths. It's a quiet exchange, a planetary conversation between hot and cold, surface and depth. Wherever warmth rises, coolness follows, and the dialogue continues without pause. If you could follow a single droplet of seawater through this cycle, you might trace a journey longer than any lifetime. Born in sunlight near the equator, it would drift north, blend with new waters, cool, and sink. A century later, it might reappear on the far side of the world, rising once more toward the light, carrying the faint memory of the tropics within it. The ocean's heat is never lost. It simply changes hands, passed gently from current to current, from surface to air, from sea to sky. Sometimes when the balance shifts, when a warm current slows or a cold one deepens, the entire climate tilts. Rain falls where it never did before, storms gather in new places, and winds change their routes. It's as if the ocean adjusts the planet's thermostat, turning the dial a fraction of a degree and rewriting weather itself. And yet, for all this power, the sea remains calm on the surface, concealing its grand mechanics beneath a mask of stillness. Stand by the shore and feel the faint warmth in the wind. That air has touched oceans you've never seen. It carries the memory of coral lagoons, of sunlit waves thousands of miles away. Every breath you take contains the ocean's quiet labor, its endless effort to keep the world livable and kind. The sea is not only water, it is motion, balance, and grace. While we sleep, it continues its work, shifting warmth across the globe, so that dawn can rise gently in every place at once. The next time you feel a soft breeze at night, think of it as a message from far away, a whisper of sunlight carried by the ocean's hand. If you listen long enough by the shore, you'll hear a conversation older than any language. It's the whisper between ocean and sky, an endless exchange that keeps the world alive. No words, no voices, yet every cloud, every raindrop, every breath of wind carries part of that quiet dialogue. Each day, the sun warms the surface of the sea, stirring countless molecules into motion. Some of them escape. Invisible travelers rising from wave tops, lifted gently into the air. They carry salt, warmth, and memory upward, joining the atmosphere as vapor. To the human eye, the sea still looks calm, but in truth it is exhaling, sending invisible sighs toward the sky. As the air rises, it cools, and those tiny vapor particles gather together, forming droplets that cling to dust, salt, or fragments of plankton. These droplets grow into clouds, soft mountains of mist suspended above the water. From afar, they look weightless, but inside them is the breath of entire oceans. When the sky grows heavy, the droplets fall again, returning as rain, touching distant lands, rivers, and forests that will one day send their waters back to the sea. It is the world's most patient conversation, a call and response that never ends. Sometimes this exchange becomes visible to us, the shimmer of a heat mirage above the waves, or the rise of mist after a summer storm. On cool mornings, when the sun first touches the water, tendrils of vapor curl upward like smoke, only to vanish a few feet above the surface. It is the ocean's greeting to the day, a soft good morning in the language of warmth and air. Winds, too, are part of this dialogue. They sweep across the ocean, gathering moisture and carrying it far from the coastlines. What begins as a whisper over the Pacific might become rain in a distant mountain valley. The air that rustles through the trees tonight could have once drifted above coral reefs or the open sea. Every gust is a messenger, the sky returning the ocean's greeting. In this endless exchange, energy and emotion flow together. The sea gives its moisture and warmth. The sky returns it as shade and rain. Without this balance, the planet would be silent and still. But together they create rhythm, evaporation and condensation, rise and fall, gift and return. They breathe as one, and everything on Earth lives within that breath. Even sound travels between them in delicate ways. When thunder rolls over the ocean, the surface trembles slightly, sending ripples downward. And when waves crash below, they release bursts of air that drift upward as faint pops of pressure. It's a dialogue written in vibration, a pulse that joins sea and sky in a shared heartbeat. For all its complexity, this system feels deeply human in its simplicity. It mirrors the way we speak and listen, give and receive, exhale and inhale. Perhaps that's why watching clouds form over the ocean feels so calming. We recognize the pattern. We see our own breathing reflected in the rhythm of the world around us. Now imagine standing on the shore at twilight. The air is damp and cool, carrying the scent of salt. Far above, the last sunlight paints the edges of the clouds golden rose. For a moment, you feel suspended, not entirely earthbound, not yet part of the sky. The breeze that touches your face has come from the sea, traveled through clouds, and returned again in this single instant. You are standing where their whispers meet. As night deepens, the ocean's exhale slows. The air grows heavier, filled with invisible moisture. Somewhere out at sea, new clouds are forming, quiet thoughts rising from dark water, drifting into the stars. By dawn, they will rain again, and the conversation will continue, unbroken, gentle, and eternal. So as you breathe in now, imagine drawing in a piece of that whisper, the air shaped by the ocean's sigh. And as you breathe out, send it back, a small reply into the silence. The sea will hear it, the sky will listen, and between them, the world will keep breathing. Not all currents wander unseen. Some carve paths so wide and so powerful that they shape the weather of entire continents. Among them, one river reigns above all others, the Gulf Stream, the ocean's grand highway, flowing endlessly from the tropics toward the icy edges of the world. It begins quietly in the Gulf of Mexico, where sunlight pools thick and heavy over turquoise water. Here, the sea is warm as skin, stirred by gentle trade winds that set it spinning. As the rotation of the earth bends those winds, the water begins to curl eastward, slipping through the narrow strait between Florida and Cuba. What passes through that small gateway becomes one of the strongest currents on Earth, a moving ocean within an ocean. From the Florida coast, the Gulf Stream races north, hugging the edge of the continent. At its center, the current can flow faster than a river, carrying billions of tons of water each second, a silent force, invisible yet unstoppable. Beneath the surface, swirling eddies spin off like thoughts from a wandering mind, each carrying warmth into the Atlantic. Above it, the sky responds, clouds gather, winds shift, and entire weather systems form around its trail. The heartbeat of the tropics reaches far into the temperate world. As it journeys east, the Gulf Stream spreads and softens. It releases its stored warmth into the air, a gift that drifts over Europe's western shores. That gift is why roses bloom in Ireland, why fjords in Norway remain ice-free, even in deep winter, why cities thousands of miles from the equator still feel the breath of summer. It is warmth delivered across an ocean, carried gently by the patience of water. Scientists describe it as part of a vast conveyor, a loop of motion linking every ocean together. As the Gulf Stream cools in northern waters, it grows denser and heavier. Eventually, it sinks beneath the surface, sliding down through the cold Atlantic depths. That sinking motion pulls new warm water behind it, keeping the cycle alive. Each layer feeds the next, like one long inhale following another, an eternal breath that never ends. If you could follow the Gulf Stream from beginning to end, you would travel more than 10,000 miles. You would drift past coral reefs glowing like jewels, over trenches deeper than mountains are tall, through waters shifting from sapphire to slate. You would watch storms form overhead, lightning reflected on black waves, then see sunlight break again, golden and forgiving. The current would carry you north into colder, wilder seas, where whales sing beneath icebergs and the horizon stretches in endless gray. For centuries, sailors trusted this current like a friend. They called it the river in the sea. Its steady flow carried ships across the Atlantic long before engines existed. Explorers, traders, and dreamers all rode its invisible path, feeling the tug of a force greater than any wind. Even now, modern vessels and satellites trace its route, still humbled by its persistence. Sometimes when conditions shift, when melting ice or changing winds disturb the balance, scientists watch anxiously, fearing the current may slow. For if the Gulf Stream ever faltered, climates would tremble. Rainfall patterns, harvests, migrations, all depend on its quiet labor. But the ocean, vast and resilient, finds ways to endure. It remembers its rhythm. It adjusts like a musician tuning an ancient instrument, returning always to the same melody. Tonight, somewhere between the Bahamas and Newfoundland, that melody continues. Beneath the stars, the Gulf Stream glows faintly with life, plankton drifting in its warmth, dolphins riding its edges, ships passing overhead unaware of the engine beneath them. It will keep flowing tomorrow, and the day after, and for centuries to come, carrying the warmth of one world into another. So as you rest now, imagine yourself adrift upon that gentle current, unhurried, buoyant, safe. You move without effort, guided by invisible grace, northward through the cool breath of the earth. The sea knows where it's going, and for this moment, so do you. The ocean is older than memory. Every current that moves today carries the imprint of ages when the world was carved by ice. Long before cities, before ships, before even the first forests, the sea flowed under skies, heavy with frozen air. The great glaciers of those times pressed against the continents, forcing the oceans to shift and breathe in new patterns, patterns that still shape their motion now. When the ice ages came, much of the planet's water froze into vast white sheets. Sea levels fell, revealing continental shelves and ancient valleys that are now hidden beneath the waves. But the ocean did not sleep. It adjusted. As cold spread from the poles, the surface waters chilled and grew dense, sinking in great, slow cascades toward the seafloor. These sinking streams began the deep currents that still wander the planet's depths today, cold, dark rivers that remember a frozen world. In those ancient oceans, temperatures fell to extremes, yet life endured. Plankton and bacteria clung to cracks in the ice. Fish evolved to survive in water, just above freezing. Every time the glaciers advanced or retreated, the sea changed its routes, rebalancing the planet's heat. The deep Atlantic grew heavier, the Pacific lighter, and together they formed a global engine that began turning long before human time. Today, that engine still runs. Scientists call it the Foyne Global Conveyor Belt, a continuous circulation linking every sea into one. The water that sinks in the Arctic and Antarctic now flows slowly toward the equator, hugging the ocean floor like a dream that never ends. It may take 1,000 years for that cold water to rise again, but when it does, it returns carrying the memory of the ice that birthed it. It carries the story of Earth's past climate, the record of snow and sunlight, stored not in books or stones, but in molecules of water. If we could see these deep currents, we would glimpse ghosts of time moving beneath us. They glide through trenches and along the edges of continents, silent and immense. They pass beneath storms, beneath migrating whales, beneath ships that will never sense them. They are the ocean's roots, unseen, but essential, drawing coolness from the past and delivering it to the present. Each current a thread of history, weaving through the fabric of the planet. Occasionally, fragments of that ancient cold reach the surface. When deep water wells up along certain coasts, it brings with it nutrients locked away for centuries. Minerals and elements that feed blooms of plankton, filling the water with new color and life. In this way, the memory of the ice ages nourishes the present, ensuring that the oldest part of the ocean still gives back to the youngest. Even decay becomes renewal. Even darkness becomes light. The air we breathe is touched by that same exchange. When the ocean draws warmth into its depths, it cools the sky. When it releases that heat again, the climate shifts subtly, whispering reminders of its long, slow patience. Every gust of wind, every gentle change in season, is tied to the rhythms the sea learned when ice ruled the earth. It remembers balance. It remembers balance. Imagine yourself suspended above one of these ancient flows, drifting in absolute stillness. There is no sound, no light, only the slow press of water that has not seen the surface for 1,000 years. It moves around you like a living memory, unhurried, serene. Somewhere far above, the moon tugs at the surface. Waves rise and fall, storms form and pass. Yet here below, everything continues at the pace of eternity. You are surrounded by the breath of ages, the pulse of a planet that has endured cold and fire, silence and song. When you return to the surface in your mind, the air feels different, softer, older, as though it carries echoes of that deep current. It is humbling to realize that every raindrop, every flake of snow, every sip of water we take has once been part of that slow procession. We are made of ancient seas, recycled through time, refined by patience. The ocean's memory is not written in words, but in motion. Currents are its sentences, eddies its commas, tides its rhythm. They remind us that even in change there is constancy, that movement can be its own form of peace. And so, as the sea keeps flowing, it carries us all within its long remembrance. A world of water that once froze, then thawed, then dreamed itself alive again. Every drop of water on Earth is part of one continuous story. Whether it falls as rain upon a mountain, freezes into snow at the poles, or rises as mist from a warm sea, its journey will always return to the same truth. All waters meet. This is the quiet secret of the planet, that there is only one ocean wearing many names. The Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, the Arctic. They are chapters of the same vast body, connected beneath invisible borders. Currents flow across their boundaries without pause, carrying warmth, salt, and life from one realm to the next. If you were to follow a single drop, you would see that the divisions we draw on maps are illusions. Lines drawn across something that refuses to be contained. Far beneath the waves, great corridors of water link one basin to another, gateways between worlds. In the Southern Ocean, swirling currents wrap around Antarctica like a silver belt, joining every major sea into one endless loop. From there, deep water slips north, rising gradually through the Atlantic, crossing into the Indian Ocean, spilling finally into the Pacific, before sinking again. A single journey may take 1,000 years, but it always completes the circle. The planet breathes through this motion, a global heartbeat that never falters. On the surface, the same pattern unfolds in miniature. Rivers pour into bays, bays open into seas, seas into oceans. Storms rise, then drift inland, where their rain feeds forests and fills lakes. That water, through soil and stone, finds its way back through streams and groundwater, returning again to the ocean's embrace. It is a constant exchange, a dance of giving and returning, like pulse and breath, tide and rest. To imagine this is to see the world differently. There is no separation between the snow melting on a distant peak and the wave that folds onto the sand at your feet. One began as the other 1,000 cycles ago. Even the tear that falls from a cheek contains a fragment of the same salt that drifts in the sea. Ancient, endless, familiar. Scientists once tried to mark where one ocean ended and another began. They measured salinity, temperature, and depth, drawing invisible walls across the map. But nature ignores these lines. Storms mix the layers. Winds push warm and cold together. Tides erase the boundaries as easily as waves wash footprints from the sand. The sea does not divide, it connects. It links the poles to the equator, the past to the present, the breath of whales to the wind that moves the trees. Its very motion is unity. If you could hover far above the earth, you would see blue stretching unbroken around the sphere, swirls and gyres, eddies and streams, all bound together in motion. The continents look like islands, scattered in a single cosmic sea. Even space travelers who have gazed down from orbit often say the same thing. Earth does not look like a planet of land. It looks like a planet of water with a few fragments of soil floating upon it. This connectedness extends to life itself. The plankton drifting near the surface feed on nutrients, carried up by deep currents that began in polar darkness. Fish follow those plankton. Seabirds follow the fish. Predators and prey trace their existence along the same invisible highways of water. Even the coral reefs, anchored and still, depend on this motion to deliver the microscopic food that sustains them. Life itself is a current, flowing, cycling, renewing. For humans too, these waters have always been the thread between worlds. Our earliest ancestors followed coastlines and rivers, learning that water led to food, shelter, and discovery. Great migrations, trade routes, and voyages of exploration all began by following the call of the sea. Every harbor in the world is a meeting place, not just of ships and people, but of waters that have traveled from everywhere to arrive in one shared tide. The ocean has always been the planet's memory and its messenger. Even now, standing at the edge of a quiet shore, you are touching every ocean at once. The wave that curls around your ankles may carry molecules that once rose from Antarctic ice or drifted through the coral gardens of the Pacific. Each ripple is a messenger from 1,000 places, a tapestry of moments woven together by time and motion. When it retreats, it leaves behind the hush of connection, a reminder that nothing, not even distance, is truly apart. Some nights, when the sea is calm and the moon stretches its reflection unbroken across the surface, it's easy to imagine that the world is exhaling, one long, unified breath. The sound of the waves is the planet's voice, saying the same word again and again, together, and beneath that word lies the rhythm that keeps everything alive. One ocean, one air, one endless flow. So, as you rest now, picture that unseen web of water wrapping around the earth, binding coast to coast. Imagine your own body as part of it, the water in your blood, the moisture in your breath, the quiet tides that move within every living thing. You are not separate from this cycle. You are made of it. You are part of the same connection that joins rivers to rain, rain to sea, sea to sky. All waters meet, within and without. Let that thought settle like calm water after a wave. Feel your breathing slow, matching the rhythm of the tides that circle the world. Inhale and the ocean rises. Exhale and it retreats. No beginning, no end, just movement, unity, peace, the sea, the air, and you, all one rhythm, all one breath. Beneath the surface of tropical seas, where sunlight filters down in golden ribbons, the ocean blooms. Here, in the gentle sway of the tides, life has found a way to build gardens out of stone. They are called coral reefs, living cities, constructed grain by tiny architects who never stop working. To float above them is to drift across a dream made of color and motion. Each coral is a colony of countless animals, so small they could rest on the tip of a pin. They stretch out delicate tentacles to catch drifting food from the water, and in return for sunlight, they build homes from calcium carbonate, tiny fortresses that join together over centuries to become cliffs, arches, and towers of living rock. The reef grows upward and outward, following the light, shaping itself into forms that defy imagination, spirals, fans, and branching forests that seem sculpted by patient hands. From above, the reef glows like a painting brought to life. Turquoise shallows give way to streaks of violet and emerald, dotted with flashes of orange and silver. Fish flicker through coral corridors. Sea turtles glide by as gently as drifting leaves. Every color you can imagine is alive here, moving, breathing, blending. It's not chaos but harmony, each creature playing its part in a quiet symphony of survival. The reef's beauty hides its fragility. Every structure is both fortress and cradle, strong enough to withstand storms, yet vulnerable to changes in temperature or light. A single degree of warmth too much, and the corals pale, a process called bleaching, when they lose the tiny algae that feed them. For a while, they look ghostly, white as bone beneath the waves. But often, if the water cools again, life returns. The color seeps back, slow as dawn, and the reef remembers how to breathe. To the ocean, coral reefs are what forests are to the land. They shelter the small and feed the great. Tiny crustaceans burrow among coral branches. Bright reef fish hide in the shadows. Sharks patrol the edges like silent guardians. Every creature depends on another. Each heartbeat, each flutter of fin sends ripples through the web of life that stretches from reef to open sea. Even the sand beneath your feet on a tropical beach may once have been coral, ground and shaped by the patient work of time and tide. At night, the garden changes. When the sun sinks, the colors fade and a quieter world awakens. Polyps extend their soft arms into the dark, feeding on plankton that drift like snow. Some corals glow faintly, emitting a green or blue light, as though the reef is dreaming beneath the stars. The water grows still, and the sound of waves above becomes distant, like the heartbeat of a sleeping planet. It's easy to forget, watching them, that these creatures have been building for millions of years. Long before the first humans walked on land, coral reefs have their seasons, their stories, and even their own celebrations. Once a year, in the warmth of late summer, entire reefs release clouds of eggs and sperm into the water at once. For a few dazzling nights, the sea fills with tiny glowing spheres rising toward the surface. Billions of them, moving as one. It looks like snowfall turned upside down, or stars returning to the heavens. In those moments, the reef renews itself, ensuring its survival for another generation. It is the ocean's quiet festival of life, witnessed mostly by the moon and the tides. Floating there, it's impossible not to feel wonder. Every curve of coral, every darting fish, every shimmer of light carries the same message. Life does not hurry. It builds, it rests, it rebuilds again. Even after storms tear pieces away, the reef begins again at the smallest scale, invisible to the eye. Patience is its strength, beauty its byproduct. If you ever drift above such a reef, in person or in imagination, notice the soundless rhythm beneath the colors. The ocean moves through it like a breath through lungs, feeding, cleaning, renewing. It's the same rhythm that moves through you now, steady and calm. The water, the coral, and you are all made of the same elements: carbon, calcium, salt, and time. You are part of this garden, this world beneath the waves, this endless act of creation. So let yourself drift for a moment longer in that imagined sunlight. See the reef stretching out before you like a field of dreams, glowing softly alive and unhurried. The ocean is not asking for attention, only for stillness, and in its stillness, everything breathes. If coral reefs are the ocean's gardens, then kelp forests are its cathedrals. They rise from the seafloor toward the light, tall and graceful, their golden fronds stretching like stained glass windows toward the sun. To drift through them is to wander through a living hall of motion and silence, every blade swaying to the slow music of the sea. Each strand of kelp begins as something almost invisible, a single spore carried by the tide. When it finds the right place, it anchors itself to stone with a small holdfast that grips like a hand. From that point it grows upward, sometimes more than a foot a day until it reaches the light above. Some species can grow higher than the length of a football field, forming dense canopies that ripple and breathe with the current. Sunlight, filtered through layers of water and kelp, becomes soft and green, casting a gentle glow over everything below. Fish glide through shafts of light as though passing between worlds. Sea otters wrap themselves in the fronds to rest, bobbing gently at the surface. Even in the deepest silence, you can sense the slow heartbeat of this place, the measured rhythm of tides brushing through an ancient forest. Unlike the trees of the land, kelp does not rely on roots to live. It draws its nourishment directly from the water around it, absorbing what it needs as it drifts and bends. This flexibility gives it a strength all its own. When storms tear through the surface, the kelp yields instead of breaking, bending low, waiting for calm to return. And when it does, the forest rises again, tall and unshaken, proof that gentleness can also be resilience. The creatures that live here move as part of the rhythm. Seals twist between columns of kelp with effortless grace, hunting fish that hide in the shadowy green light. Starfish cling to the rocks below, while snails and small crabs explore the forest floor, grazing on drifting bits of life. Each movement stirs the water, each stir feeds another. There is no waste here, only exchange, quiet and complete. Even the air you breathe carries a gift from these forests. Kelp, like coral and plankton, produces oxygen as it grows. Each gentle sway helps to fill the atmosphere above with the breath of the sea. When you inhale now, somewhere a kelp forest is exhaling, a silent connection between your body and this underwater world. For coastal people across centuries, kelp has always been both provider and protector. Its thick beds soften incoming waves, shielding shorelines from erosion. Its fronds feed and heal, rich in minerals and salts. Long before science gave names to its properties, it was known by touch, by taste, by the quiet gratitude of those who lived beside it. To this day, the scent of drying seaweed along a rocky shore carries that same sense of comfort, a whisper from the ocean's green heart. Beneath the canopy, the light dims as you sink deeper, until it feels like evening, even at midday. The water grows cooler. The sound of your own breath echoes softly in your ears. If you hold still, you can feel the entire forest move around you, a slow, weightless pulse. Blades of kelp brush your arms like passing thoughts. Bubbles rise in silver chains toward the surface, catching fragments of sunlight as they go. It's hard to tell where the body ends and the sea begins. For a few moments, you belong entirely to the rhythm of this place. When you return to the surface, the world above feels brighter, lighter, newly born. The waves roll gently, and the tops of the kelp drift like golden ribbons on the water. They glimmer in the sunlight, endless, patient, alive. And as you float there, you realize that these forests breathe in time with everything else. The tides, the wind, the clouds, even you. Each life depends on the rest, so take a slow breath. Let it move through you like the tide through the kelp, smooth, soft, unbroken. The forest sways, the sea listens, and everything that drifts within it finds its place. When daylight fades and the surface grows dark, the ocean does not fall asleep. It begins to shine. From the shallows to the deepest trenches, countless living lanterns flicker to life, illuminating the sea from within. They glow without fire, without sun, carrying their own small stars in their bodies. This phenomenon is called bioluminescence, air, light made by life. It is older than humanity and more mysterious than flame. The light appears in blues and greens, colors that travel far through water. For the creatures that possess it, it is more than beauty, It is language, camouflage, and lure. Each flash is a message written in light, each shimmer a heartbeat in the dark. Imagine floating in the open ocean at night. The water around you is black velvet, and every motion you make paints it with sparks. Each drop stirred by your hand bursts into pale blue radiance, before fading again. Plankton drift by the billions just beneath the surface, tiny as dust motes, each one glowing when disturbed. Together they form shifting constellations, galaxies of light moving with the waves. A single fish passing through leaves a trail of silver fire, like a comet crossing a midnight sky. Deeper down, where sunlight has never touched, the glow becomes the only source of vision. Jellyfish pulse with ghostly halos. Transparent shrimp carry glowing organs inside their bodies. Fish trail luminous filaments behind them, weaving ribbons of light through the dark. Some emit brief flashes to startle predators. Others use steady light to recognize companions. A few lure prey with a faint shimmer, pretending to be something harmless until the last instant. In the abyss, survival itself is written in brightness and shadow. Among these lights drifts the anglerfish, a creature almost mythic in its solitude. A small beacon dangles from its forehead, a living lure filled with bacteria that shine softly in the gloom. It waves this lantern through the darkness until another form draws near, curious about the glow. Then, with a quiet flick of jaws, the illusion ends. Even here, beauty and danger share the same light. Higher up, squid orchestrate entire light shows. They flash patterns along their skin, signaling to one another or confusing predators. Some species can vanish in an instant, blending into the surrounding blue simply by changing how their skin reflects light. It is as if the sea has learned to write poetry with photons. Brief, silent verses, visible only to those who drift close enough to read them. For travelers on the surface, these glows can seem like magic. Sailors once told stories of underwater fires that followed their ships at night, or waves that burned blue when struck by oars. They called it sea fire, believing it to be the work of spirits or the reflection of the stars. Now we know that these lights are the ocean's own heartbeat made visible, the invisible chemistry of life painting itself across the dark. The science behind it is quiet elegance. Inside these creatures, a molecule called luciferin reacts with oxygen, releasing a photon of light. No heat, no smoke, just illumination. The reaction is so efficient that nearly every bit of energy becomes radiance. It's light made without waste, designed for the cool patience of water rather than the violence of flame. In that sense, it is the purest kind of fire. At the edge of beaches around the world where the surf meets sand, this phenomenon sometimes reaches us. When waves crash on certain summer nights, they glow electric blue, each drop flashing as it breaks. People who walk along those shores leave footprints of light that fade behind them. It feels like stepping through another realm, one where the boundary between Earth and cosmos dissolves. Children laugh, adults fall silent. Everyone watches the water breathe light. For a few moments, we glimpse the living universe under our feet. Beneath the science and wonder lies a reminder, even in darkness, life finds ways to shine. The creatures of the deep do not wait for the sun. They create their own day. Their glow is not defiance but acceptance, a quiet collaboration with the dark. Each pulse of light says, "I am here." Why, not loudly, but enough for the world to notice. As you rest now, imagine those drifting lanterns far below, slow-moving stars suspended in endless night. Picture their gentle flicker mirrored in your own breath, in and out. Each inhale a small glow, each exhale a fading spark. The ocean does not fear the dark. It fills it with beauty. And somewhere, deep beneath the waves, 1,000 lights continue to bloom, carrying the memory of the stars down into the heart of the sea. Beneath the last trace of sunlight lies a kingdom where day has never existed. It begins somewhere around 200 meters below the surface, where the water dims to cobalt, then indigo, then black. Here, light can no longer reach, and the ocean becomes a world of silence and shadow, the deep sea. It is the largest realm on Earth, vast enough to swallow all the mountains and plains above it, yet it remains largely unknown. Imagine descending through those darkening layers, leaving behind the colors of the surface. Above you, the sky fades away until even the idea of up loses meaning. The water thickens, pressing in on every side with the slow insistence of gravity. At these depths, pressure becomes a force beyond imagination. Every square inch of space bears the weight of dozens of elephants. Yet life endures here, fragile, flexible, luminous. The descent feels endless. As you drift deeper, the last blue turns to black, and the ocean's vastness becomes something intimate, a silence so complete it feels alive. This is the twilight zone, a boundary between worlds. Creatures here have evolved to thrive in the faintest traces of light, their bodies tuned to the hush and the dark. Many drift rather than swim, conserving energy in a place where food is scarce. Their movements are slow, deliberate, graceful, a choreography of patience. In this half-light, forms grow strange and delicate. Transparent fish shimmer like glass sculptures, their bones visible as faint silver threads. Squid stretch arms as long as trees. Some creatures glow in soft pulses, not bright enough to illuminate, but enough to find one another in the dark. Even the predators seem dreamlike, more shadow than shape, lives defined by sensing rather than seeing. Here, sight is replaced by sensitivity, sound replaced by vibration. Farther down, beyond 1,000 meters, the true abyss begins. No light from the surface can reach this kingdom. Temperatures drop close to freezing, currents slow to near stillness. It is an ancient world, one that existed long before sunlight first struck the continents. The creatures here move as though time itself has slowed. They are the old souls of the sea. Gigantic amphipods, relatives of shrimp, crawl across the mud, their translucent bodies glowing faintly. Strange eelpouts hover motionless, conserving energy. Sea cucumbers drift like ghosts above the seafloor, feeding on the faint drizzle of organic matter that falls from above, a constant snow of dust and fragments called marine snow. Every flake that falls, a piece of dead plankton, a grain of silt, becomes food for something below. In this way, life on the surface nourishes life in the deep, linking the ocean's extremes in a quiet chain of generosity. Sometimes this stillness is broken by bursts of light. When a whale dies and sinks to the bottom, it becomes an island of abundance. For years, perhaps decades, thousands of creatures gather around its bones, worms, crabs, eels, bacteria, all drawn to the feast. The whale, which once soared through open waters, becomes the foundation for new life, proving that even endings in the ocean are beginnings in disguise. The deep-sea floor is not empty. It ripples with mountains and valleys, trenches and ridges that rival any landscape on land. Some peaks rise higher than Everest, though hidden beneath miles of water. In places where the Earth's crust splits apart, hydrothermal vents spew mineral-rich water into the darkness. The temperature near these vents can reach hundreds of degrees, yet life flourishes there. Creatures that feed not on sunlight, but on chemistry. Bacteria use hydrogen sulfide and minerals to create energy, forming the base of an ecosystem independent of the sun. Tubule worms taller than a person cluster around these vents, their red plumes waving in the current like fields of underwater grass. Here, the Earth itself seems to breathe through the ocean floor. For scientists who visit this world, the experience is like traveling back in time. Each new dive reveals species never before seen, translucent snails, jelly, like fish, even microbes that may hold the secrets of life's origins. It is possible that the first living cells on Earth began in a place just like this, in the deep, dark warmth of the ocean's cradle. To look into those depths is to glimpse the planet as it was 4 billion years ago, still new, still dreaming. Yet for all its strangeness, the deep sea does not feel hostile. It feels sacred. There is a peace in its silence, a wisdom in its darkness. Down here, there are no sudden movements, no noise, no hurry, only the slow unfolding of time. The ocean's pulse is steady and soft, like a heartbeat slowed by sleep. If you listen closely, you can almost hear that rhythm. Not sound, but sensation. The quiet pressure surrounding you, the gentle sway of unseen currents, the faint hum of Earth's magnetic pulse moving through salt water. It feels less like being somewhere else and more like returning to something familiar, something ancient inside yourself. So, let your thoughts drift now as the deep sea drifts around you. Picture those quiet valleys, those glowing creatures, the endless night. Imagine the peace of existing without need for light, without rush, without noise. Down here, everything endures by surrender, not by fighting the dark, but by becoming part of it. And maybe that's what peace really is, not the absence of movement, but harmony with it. The ocean's deepest kingdom keeps its silence, but not its secrets. If you are very still, it will share them with you, not in words, but in calm. It will remind you that you are small, yes, but not separate. That the same atoms that drift here in the abyss drift in your blood. That the sea, in all its stillness, is not emptiness at all, but everything, waiting quietly to be remembered. Far below the surface, the seafloor is anything but flat. It rises and falls in slow motion, sculpted by the same forces that built the continents. If we could drain the ocean for a moment, the landscape revealed would be breathtaking. Peaks higher than the Himalayas, canyons deeper than any valley on land, and plains that stretch farther than the eye could follow. The ocean hides a world more dramatic than the one we know. The largest mountain chain on Earth lies here, the Mid-Ocean Ridge, a wound that circles the planet for more than 40,000 miles. At its crest, new crust is born as molten rock rises and cools. The ridge hums quietly with creation, producing new seafloor inch by inch, century by century. Around its slopes grow strange communities of lifeworms and snails that feed on the minerals pouring from cracks in the crust, bright colonies of bacteria that turn raw chemistry into food. It is a reminder that the Earth is not still, it is breathing beneath the water, reshaping itself in silence. Elsewhere, the seabed plunges suddenly into darkness. Trenches cut into the crust like scars, narrow and profound. The Mariana Trench, the deepest of them all, descends nearly 7 miles, a depth so great that Mount Everest could fit inside and still be drowned by a mile of water above its peak. Down there, the pressure is beyond comprehension, yet delicate creatures drift through the blackness as if weightless. They shine faintly, like embers that refuse to die, each one proof that even the heaviest silence can carry light. Between these extremes lie wide 15 abyssal plains, calm and featureless at first glance. But look closely, and you see them rippled with dunes of fine silt, crossed by tracks of slow-moving animals, dotted with the shadows of sunken ships and the faint outlines of forgotten rivers. Currents glide over them like wind over grass. Every so often, a plume of sediment curls upward, a ghostly echo of motion in a place where time itself seems to hesitate. And then there are the lakes within the ocean. In certain deep basins where dense brine seeps from the rocks, the water becomes so heavy with salt that it forms its own surface. These fine brine pools look like shimmering ponds resting at the bottom of the sea, complete with ripples and shores. To approach one is to see a reflection that moves independently from the water around it, an underwater mirage. Creatures hover at the edge but rarely cross the boundary. The density is too strong. It is as if two worlds meet and politely refuse to mix. There are other hidden lakes, 2 pockets of methane trapped beneath layers of sand, cold seeps that bubble gently like springs in the dark. In these places, life gathers around chemical energy the way forests gather around sunlight. Bacteria bloom, feeding mussels and tube worms, creating oases of motion on an otherwise quiet plain. Everywhere in the ocean, the pattern repeats, stillness giving birth to vitality, emptiness turning into abundance. Scientists exploring these landscapes often describe a sense of awe that borders on reverence. Their submersibles drift above ridges and valleys that no human eyes have seen before, headlights cutting cones of light through perfect darkness. They find waterfalls of sand, cascading down cliffs, rivers of warmer water flowing within colder seas, canyons so vast that their walls vanish into the haze. Each new image feels like discovering another planet. But this planet is our own, hidden just beyond sight. If you could stand on one of those deep peaks and look around, there would be no horizon, only the soft glow of drifting snow and the slow motion of particles settling through the dark. No wind, no sound. Even the smallest vibration travels for miles, echoing like a heartbeat through the stone. To think of these mountains and canyons is to remember that the ocean is not only a surface but a structure, layered and alive. It contains valleys and ridges, deserts and oases, calm and storm, all existing together in balance. And somewhere down there, hidden lakes still shimmer unseen, their boundaries untouched by light. As you breathe now, imagine those shapes below you, the rise and fall of invisible mountains. The hush of valleys, filled with drifting sand. The same gravity that pulls at the tides also sculpts these depths. The earth moves, the water moves, And within that motion, everything finds its place, even in darkness. Form exists, even in silence. Music endures. The seafloor may seem eternal, solid, silent, unmoving, but nothing in the ocean is truly still. Beneath miles of water, the earth is alive. The ocean floor shifts, stretches, and breathes, reshaping itself grain by grain, fault by fault. It grows in some places, sinks in others. It is the quiet stage upon which the story of the planet unfolds. Imagine for a moment that you could see the world without its water. The view would surprise you. Instead of smooth plains, you'd find a planet of scars and folds, ripples and ridges, spiraling like fingerprints across its face. Most of the action happens where continents drift apart or collide, boundaries marked not by walls, but by seams of molten stone that glow faintly in the dark. Along the simid ocean ridges, new seafloor is born. Molten rock from Earth's mantle seeps upward, cools, and hardens into fresh crust. It's a process that has continued for hundreds of millions of years, slowly pushing continents across the surface, like drifting leaves on a pond. As new crust forms, older crust slides outward, carrying with it the deep ocean basins we know today. In this way, the planet renews itself, an endless cycle of creation that mirrors the tides above. The movement is almost imperceptible. Each year, the Atlantic Ocean widens by roughly an inch or two. That's slower than your fingernails grow. Yet given enough time, it changes everything. The continents that now seem permanent were once connected. They will one day separate again. Even the outlines of the seas, their familiar shapes on maps, are only temporary gestures in the long story of the Earth. Sometimes the ocean floor trembles, reminding us that it's alive. Where plates grind against one another, earthquakes ripple through the water, sending waves racing toward distant shores. Volcanoes erupt along underwater ridges, building mountains that may someday break the surface as islands. New land rises from the sea as quietly as a breath, and whole regions of crust vanish back into the depths. Each event is both destruction and renewal, one part of the ocean sinking so another may rise. In certain places, immense plates of seafloor are forced beneath the edges of continents, sliding into the mantle below. This process, called footing subduction, recycles the planet's surface, melting rock and feeding the fire that fuels volcanic arcs around the Pacific and beyond. The same material that once formed the ocean's bed returns to the depths to be reborn, continuing the slow conversation between water and stone. It's an exchange as ancient as time itself, a dialogue of elements beneath our feet. At the same time, the ocean floor is a vast archive. Its sediments hold a record of everything that has ever lived and died above. Layer upon layer of shells, dust, volcanic ash, and microscopic fossils settle and compact into stone, keeping a diary written in silt. Scientists read these layers as if they were pages in a book. From them, we learn about shifting climates, vanished species, even the rhythm of ice ages. Every inch of mud tells a story that spans centuries. Occasionally, these archives reveal something miraculous: the imprints of ancient rain, the remains of pollen carried from distant forests, or the dust from meteorites that once streaked across the sky. All of it settles into the same slow drift toward the bottom, captured forever in the quiet cold. If the surface of the ocean is the heart of the planet, then the seafloor is its memory. Even the smallest creatures play their part in shaping it. Microscopic organisms die and fall like snow, building soft drifts that cover the hard rock below. Their remains eventually form chalk and limestone, materials that will one day rise as cliffs and mountains. Some of the white stone in the world's cathedrals began as plankton floating in warm seas millions of years ago. The ocean's builders never stop working, even in death. Here and there, in the cracks between tectonic plates, hot water seeps upward from within the earth. These sooty hydrothermal vents spew minerals that shimmer like smoke, creating chimneys taller than houses. Though the water around them could boil a kettle, life flourishes there. Bacteria that feed on chemicals rather than sunlight, crustaceans and worms that thrive in the glow of the vents. In the darkest reaches, creation is constant. The ocean's heart beats through stone. If you were to hover just above one of these vents, you'd feel the vibration of the planet itself. The heat, the minerals, the slow movement of crust, they combine to form the pulse of a living world. It's easy to think of the sea as something separate from the land. But here the boundary dissolves. Earth and ocean breathe together, each feeding the other in an endless exchange of warmth and energy. Far from these fiery seams in the wide basins of the deep, the seafloor still shifts, quietly accumulating silt and sediment. Mountains erode, rivers carry minerals into the sea, and gravity draws it all down. Nothing is wasted, every particle finds its place in the grand design. Over time, the soft blanket of sediment thickens, and the crust beneath begins to bend under its weight. Eventually, some of it will return to the mantle, closing the cycle. To think of the ocean floor in this way is to realize that the planet is not static. It is breathing in geological time. It inhales molten rock and exhales continents. It trembles, sighs, and heals. The same rhythm that moves tides through water moves continents through stone. We live upon the crest of that breath, often unaware of the vast patience beneath us. So when you close your eyes tonight, imagine the earth from within, the molten glow, the slow drift of plates, the soft layers of silt settling like dust across centuries. Everything you stand on was once part of the sea. Everything that sinks now will rise again someday. The floor of the ocean grows even as it disappears, teaching the same lesson the tides whisper above, that endings and beginnings are not opposites, but mirrors. The sea builds, the earth yields, and through their endless exchange, the world remains alive. The story of land is, in truth, the story of water. The continents we stand on, the mountains, the valleys, the very ground beneath our feet, were sculpted by oceans long before humans dreamed of maps. Every grain of sand, every curve of coastline, every ripple in the stone once lay beneath waves that moved to the rhythm of time itself. In the beginning, there were no continents, only sea. The young Earth was a molten sphere wrapped in steam, its surface cooling into restless water. Out of that endless ocean, islands of rock emerged, small and fragile. They rose, eroded, and sank again, swallowed by the same forces that gave them life. Each cycle left behind traces, minerals rearranged, sediments layered, the planet quietly building its first continents from the patient work of tides and storms. Over billions of years, the ocean shaped the bones of the world. Waves carried away mountain dust and deposited it in deep basins, where pressure and time forged it into stone. Sediment became limestone, sandstone, shale, the raw material of every hill and valley. Even now, when you touch a rock far inland, you may be touching the remnant of an ancient seabed, lifted high above its origin by the slow drift of tectonic plates. Every mountain range, from the Andes to the Himalayas, once hid beneath the sea. The motion never stopped. Continents slide across the planet like rafts adrift in an eternal tide, their paths guided by the shifting floor below. As they collide, oceans close. As they part, new seas are born. When you look at a world map, you are not seeing permanence. You are seeing a single frame in a moving film. The Earth, you know, is a momentary shape in the ocean's long memory. Sometimes the sea's touch is gentle, a slow erosion, a carving of coastlines and cliffs. Sometimes it is dramatic. Floods pour across the land, glaciers melt, and new inlets form where there was once desert. The line between ocean and continent is always in motion, always redrawn. Even the boundaries we call shores are only temporary agreements between land and water. Look closely at the world's most dramatic landscapes, canyons, plateaus, plains, and you'll find the ocean's handwriting. The chalk cliffs of England were once the floor of a warm sea filled with plankton. The smooth red stones of the American desert were formed from sediments laid down by ancient tides. Even the Sahara, now dry and endless, still holds fossils of fish and coral, evidence that it too was once part of a thriving ocean. The water has always been an artist, sculpting both creation and decay. And while oceans shape the land, they also shape the life that walks upon it. The earliest creatures evolved in shallow seas, their bodies built from the minerals the tides delivered. When some of them crawled ashore, they carried the chemistry of the ocean within them. Our blood still holds the same balance of salt as seawater. Our cells echo the rhythms of the tides. Every heartbeat is, in some small way, a continuation of the ocean's pulse. Think of the continents not as separate from the sea, but as its memory, stone formed by the ocean's will. Even the highest peaks whisper of coral and shells, the ocean's ancient fingerprints sealed in their layers. In this way, time and water are inseparable. The sea writes, the land remembers. Now close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing on a cliff where the wind smells faintly of salt, though the nearest ocean is hundreds of miles away. That wind has crossed seas, carried whispers of waves, dust of salt, and memory of motion. It is the same voice that shaped the earth itself, slow, patient, infinite. The continents may look still, but they are only the ocean's latest sculpture. One day they too will return to the sea, carried by time, washed smooth by the same hand that made them. And the rhythm will begin again, the timeless breath of water, shaping stone, shaping life, shaping everything. Long before humans traced maps or named the tides, the oceans carried other rulers, creatures vast, graceful, and strange. The world of the dinosaurs was not only on land, it was also beneath the waves. While thunder lizards walked through forests and plains, the seas were alive with giants that soared through water as easily as birds through air. Though millions of years have passed since they vanished, the ocean still remembers them. Their bones, their shadows, their patterns of motion remain etched into its endless memory. Picture the seas of that age, warm, wide, and shallow, stretching across continents that no longer exist. There were no polar caps, no icy poles, just endless blue. The sunlight reached deep, painting golden highways for ancient creatures to travel. The water teemed with life beyond imagining, ammonites with spiraled shells like coiled galaxies, fish with armor of bone, and reptiles so large their tails could split the surface like a ship's wake. Among them swam the plesiosaurs, with long necks and paddle-like limbs, their movements smooth as the turn of planets. They glided silently, rising for air before sinking back into the depths, their bodies perfectly balanced between weight and water. In the open seas cruised the physnosaurs, predators longer than buses, their jaws lined with rows of curved teeth. They were the undisputed monarchs of their world, swift, efficient, patient. And above the waves, great pterosaurs skimmed the surface, their wings casting fleeting shadows over the swells. Fossils tell us that the ocean then was warmer, saltier, and filled with color. Coral reefs flourished across what are now deserts. Sharks and squid evolved their first great dances of survival, chasing one another through coral mazes. Even then, the balance was delicate. A shift in climate or current could redraw the borders of entire ecosystems. Life learned, as it always does, to adapt or fade. But even extinction leaves echoes. When the great meteor struck and the age of dinosaurs ended, the ocean was there to bear witness. Waves spread outward across the planet. Rain fell for months. The seas turned dark with ash. Yet beneath it all, deep below the turmoil, the ocean kept moving. Its currents slow and steady, its silence unbroken. When the light returned, new life began again, seeded from what had survived in the deep. The ancestors of whales and dolphins, turtles and fish, all rose from that persistence. Today, remnants of that era still move through the water. The Nautilus Sea, with its perfect spiral shell, drifts almost unchanged from its prehistoric ancestors. The horseshoe crab still crawls through tidal flats, on the same blue blood that flowed 500 million years ago. Even the great thread sharks, sleek and quiet, carry within them the memory of those ancient seas. Every fin, every scale, is a whisper from a time before our own. If you hold a fossil in your hand, a shell pressed into stone, a tooth gleaming in the light, you are touching a moment of that memory. The rock was once soft mud at the bottom of a primeval sea. The creature it holds once moved through currents and sunlight, unknowing that its body would one day tell a story to a world beyond its imagining. Each fossil is a letter written by the ocean to the future, sealed in stone and delivered across eons. Even the ocean's shape still bears their trace. Where ancient seas once covered the land, limestone remains a monument made from the skeletons of uncounted creatures. The cliffs of Dover, the hills of France, the coral islands of the Pacific, all are monuments to lives long vanished, but never forgotten. The water that polished their bones still flows today, the same molecules, the same rhythm. Time moves, but the sea endures. So, as you drift deeper into rest, imagine those old oceans alive again. The glimmer of fins beneath the surface, the long shadows of plesiosaurs gliding through liquid dust. They are gone, but their memory remains, folded into every wave that touches the shore. The ocean never forgets, it only transforms. It carries the past quietly within its depths, waiting for us to listen. Beneath all the noise of the modern world, that memory still hums, a vibration of time and water, echoing softly through every drop. It tells the same story it has told for millions of years, that life rises, falls, and rises again, and that the ocean remembers everything. Beneath the endless blue of the ocean, time collects like sediment. Every layer of sand, every drift of silt, every grain of dust that falls through the water carries a piece of the past. Over millions of years, those fragments build stories, quietly, patiently, until entire histories rest beneath the waves. The ocean keeps them hidden, pressed into stone, sealed by pressure and patience. These are the fossils beneath the sea, the ocean's archive of memory. Unlike the bones that weather on land, the remains of marine life are cradled by the very element that created them. When a shell, a tooth, or a skeleton settles onto the seafloor, it may be buried by a gentle snowfall of sediment within hours. Layer upon layer, it is protected from decay. Minerals seep into the pores, replacing what was once alive with crystal and stone. Slowly, invisibly, the transformation takes place, a delicate exchange between flesh and earth, life and eternity. Some fossils rest in darkness so deep that no diver will ever see them. They lie beneath miles of sediment, under pressures that could crush steel. Yet their shapes remain: ammonite spirals, coral skeletons, the outlines of ancient fish. They sleep in silence, perfectly preserved, until one day the shifting crust may lift them again toward the light. In this way, even the dead travel with the currents of time. When scientists drill cores from the seafloor, they pull up thin cylinders of layered history. Each stripe tells a chapter. Here lies volcanic ash from an ancient eruption. There, the fine dust of plankton that bloomed in a warmer age. Still deeper, a band of dark clay marks the instant of catastrophe, the impact that ended the reign of the dinosaurs. Within these thin lines of Earth, the planet's story is written with quiet precision. Sometimes the sea gives up its secrets without being asked. A storm scours the seabed, revealing a bed of fossil shells. A receding tide exposes rocks imprinted with the scales of long-vanished fish. On certain coasts, cliffs crumble into the waves, releasing treasures that have waited millions of years for sunlight. Each fossil is a message delivered late, but right on time. What makes these relics more than stone is the sense of continuity they carry. The spiral of a shell found today may be identical to one that lived in an ancient ocean. The pattern of a coral's ridges mirrors that of its ancestors. In form and function, the ocean remembers what works, repeating it across epochs. It is evolution as meditation, slow, subtle, endlessly patient. For those who study them, these fossils are not just evidence. They are voices. They tell of climates warmer and cooler, of oceans rising and falling, of creatures adapting and vanishing. They speak of balance, of cycles, of the resilience that flows through all living things. And though the hands that hold them belong to us, the message they carry belongs to the sea. Nothing truly disappears. It only changes shape. Imagine those fossils now, resting beneath the waves in perfect stillness. No light, no sound, only the slow drift of time moving over them, like sand over a sleeping world. They are the ocean's memories made solid, waiting quietly beneath the surface of today. When the waves brush the shore, when the wind moves across the water, part of that memory rises with it. The past is never gone, it simply breathes through the sea. No sculptor works more patiently than the sea. It shapes stone the way time shapes thought, slowly, silently, with endless care. Every wave that meets a cliff is a whisper, a breath of pressure, a brushstroke that leaves its mark. Even the hardest rock yields in the end. Given enough time, water can carve anything. Stand by the edge of a rocky shore and watch the tide arrive. The waves seem soft, almost playful. They rise and fold, breaking gently against the stone. But each impact carries energy drawn from far away. Winds that began hundreds of miles out at sea, storms that have long since passed. The ocean delivers that energy as a rhythm, not a blow. Each strike is small, together they are infinite. When waves retreat, they take tiny fragments with them, grains of sand, slivers of shell, bits of rock worn smooth by motion. Those fragments become tools themselves, swirling and grinding, polishing the cliffs that gave them birth. It is a collaboration, stone teaching water how to break it down, water teaching stone how to let go. From this gentle persistence come the coastlines we know. Arches that frame the sky, sea caves echoing with the sound of waves, pillars that stand like monuments to the patience of erosion. Over centuries, whole landscapes change. A bay becomes a lagoon, a peninsula, an island a chain of reefs. The process is so gradual that no single generation notices. Yet the evidence is everywhere. Every rounded pebble on the beach was once part of a mountain. Every stretch of sand beneath your feet began as a solid wall of stone. The sea's work is invisible in the moment, but absolute in its result. Sometimes, this carving becomes music. When waves rush through narrow arches or into hollow caves, they create tones, deep notes that hum through the rock. Each coastline has its own melody, tuned by its shape and depth. To listen closely is to hear the earth sing quietly to itself. Even the air above vibrates with those frequencies, carrying the ocean's heartbeat inland. You can feel it if you stand still, the faint tremor of sound that says, "I am here, and I am moving." In the moonlight, the waves look like liquid glass sliding over the stone. They rise, curve, and break, leaving a sheen that catches the stars. Each motion is both destruction and renewal. What is taken will return elsewhere, in a new form, sandbar, delta, dune. The sea is not greedy, it only rearranges. What looks like loss is simply transformation, a reminder that permanence is an illusion, and that beauty often comes from change. To imagine this process over millions of years is to understand humility. Cliffs crumble, valleys flood, mountains bow, and yet none of it is tragedy. The ocean has no sense of hurry or regret. It acts in accordance with balance, and in doing so, it teaches the same lesson, that endurance is not resistance, but acceptance. The wave yields to the wind, the rock yields to the wave, and through their meeting something new is born. When you walk along a shoreline, feel that history beneath your feet. The sand pressing against your skin is the memory of stone, smoothed by uncountable tides. Each grain has known both mountain and ocean, both rise and fall. To stand there is to stand inside a story still being written, one whose pace is measured not in moments, but in ages. So, as you rest now, picture those slow waves carving stone in the dark. Hear their whisper against the cliffs, steady as a breath. They do not hurry, and neither must you. Everything changes, but nothing is lost. The sea remembers, the stone listens, and time moves softly between them, shaping, smoothing, dreaming. We think of the oceans as eternal, but there were times when they almost disappeared. Across the long timeline of Earth, seas have come and gone, rising to cover the continents, then retreating to leave behind deserts and salt, white plains. The story of the ocean is not a constant presence, but a rhythm of appearing and returning, a tide measured in millions of years. In the distant past, the shape of the world was unrecognizable. Continents drifted together and apart, closing old seas and creating new ones. Where the Atlantic now lies, there was once dry land. Where deserts stretch today, waves once shimmered beneath the sun. Even the vast Pacific, that endless expanse of blue, has been born and reborn. Its floor created anew every 100 million years. The Earth, it seems, remakes its oceans as an artist remakes a painting, layer after patient layer. One of the most striking examples lies deep in geological history. Roughly 250 million years ago, nearly all the continents merged into a single landmass called Pangaea, with the land united, the global ocean. The Pangaea surrounded it like a single enormous sea. Its waves touched every shore. But within that landmass, the interior grew dry and hot, cut off from moisture. Many shallow seas vanished, evaporating under an unforgiving sky. Entire ecosystems disappeared as the balance between land and water tilted. Yet the ocean, though diminished, waited. As the continents slowly pulled apart again, new cracks opened in the crust, and from those wounds, water returned. New coastlines were drawn. The tides came back to places that had known only silence. It took millions of years, but eventually the earth exhaled, and the sea filled its lungs once more. Sometimes the vanishing was temporary. During ice ages, so much water froze into glaciers that sea levels dropped by hundreds of feet. Land bridges appeared between continents, allowing animals to cross where there is now open water, mammoths walking from Asia to North America, humans following in their footsteps. When the ice melted, those bridges vanished again beneath the rising tide. Even now, the ocean's boundaries are never fixed. They advance and retreat like breath, expanding in warmth, contracting in cold. In some places, the memory of vanished seas lingers in the landscape itself. Across the Sahara Desert lie vast basins where waves once rolled. Fossil shells, fish bones, and coral fragments still rest beneath the sand. In Utah, the Bonneville Salt Flats shimmer white beneath the sun, the ghost of an ancient lake that once stretched for hundreds of miles. And in the heart of Asia lies the Aral Sea, now a cracked and shrinking shadow of its former self, a living example of how quickly the balance can change. Even underground, traces of past oceans remain. In the porous stone beneath our feet, water still moves slowly through old sea channels, a hidden echo of ancient tides. In caves carved by retreating waves, salt crystals form like frozen rain. They shimmer faintly in the dark, each one a reminder that water was here and will be again. The earth does not forget its oceans. It only hides them for a time. The cycles of vanishing and return have shaped not only the planet, but life itself. Creatures adapted to shrinking seas evolved new ways to survive. Some grew legs and lungs, stepping onto land to follow the retreating water. Others learned to endure dryness, waiting for the tides to come back. Every extinction opened space for something new, a rhythm of loss and renewal echoing the breath of the sea. Even today, that rhythm continues. The climate warms, the ice melts, and sea levels rise once more. Islands shrink, shorelines shift. To some, it feels like an ending, but the ocean has always been in motion. Its rise is not vengeance, but memory, the same pull that has shaped the earth for billions of years. We live within that pattern, often without realizing it. Our cities, our histories, even our myths trace back to the times when the sea gave and took in equal measure. At night, when the world is quiet, it's easy to imagine those vanished oceans returning, to see waves rolling again over places now dry, to hear the faint hiss of water reclaiming what was lost. It is not destruction, only restoration, the planet reminding itself of balance. The same salt that once filled those seas lingers in our bodies. When we sweat, when we cry, when we stand at the edge of the water and breathe the air, we are part of that endless exchange. We are living proof that nothing truly disappears. So, as you listen now to the sound of your own breath, think of the earth breathing with you, the rise and fall of your chest, the rhythm of the tides. They are one and the same. Oceans vanish, oceans return, and through it all, the world keeps time with its oldest music, the soft, eternal whisper of water finding its way home. Time moves differently beside the sea. Minutes stretch, hours dissolve. And what feels eternal is measured not by hands on a clock, but by waves against the shore. Every motion of water is a second. Every tide a day, every shifting coastline, a lifetime. To watch the ocean is to witness the planet keeping its own time, a slow, patient rhythm older than life itself. The ocean's clock does not tick, it breathes. High tide becomes low tide, spring follows neap, the cycle repeating without haste or deviation. The moon calls, the water answers. Each turn of that ancient dialogue marks another moment in the Earth's heartbeat. If you could compress centuries into a single breath, you would see the shoreline pulse in and out, continents rise and fall like the chest of a sleeping world. For the creatures who live within it, this rhythm is everything. Crabs and fish spawn according to the lunar calendar. Coral releases its eggs only on nights when tides and moonlight align. Even the smallest plankton drift upward by day and sink again at dusk, following a timetable written into their cells. Life in the sea does not own time. It listens to it. Each being moves in tune with a tempo that never hurries and never stops. We humans often forget this slower pulse. Our clocks divide the day into fragments. Our calendars race forward, our lives measured in minutes that vanish too quickly. Yet the ocean remains unmoved by our urgency. Its calendar is carved in sediment and stone, in currents and salt, in the soft erosion of centuries. It reminds us that patience is not the absence of motion, but the presence of trust. Everything unfolds when it must. If you could read the ocean's diary, it would be written in layers. Each band of sand and silt records a moment, a storm, a migration, a season of warmth, a century of calm. Scientists call this marine stratigraphy, a word as heavy as the process is gentle. Every layer is a page in the ocean's book of time. Taken together, they reveal tides of climate, pulses of ice, the long inhale and exhale of the planet's weather. The sea keeps the only accurate record of Earth's memory, written not in ink, but in motion. Some clocks in the ocean run faster than others. The quick tick of waves striking rock measures seconds. The rhythm of the tides counts days, but there are deeper clocks. The drift of currents, the migration of heat, that measure decades, centuries, millennia. A parcel of water sinking in the polar North Atlantic may not return to the surface until 1,000 years have passed. When it does, it brings with it whispers of the world it left behind, the cold of forgotten winters, the chemistry of vanished rain. It is the sea's way of keeping time not just in motion, but in memory. Even the smallest repetition becomes sacred when seen this way. Consider the slow heartbeat of a whale. A blue whale's pulse can drop to only a few beats per minute while it dives, each throb echoing through water dense with pressure. In those moments, its body mirrors the ocean's own tempo, vast, measured, serene. When it surfaces and exhales, the plume of mist it releases is like the ocean sighing through a living lung. The whale's breath and the tide's return are part of the same cycle. Sometimes the sea's slow clock reminds us that change, though invisible, is constant. Coastlines creep forward or fall back, reefs grow and crumble, sandbars drift across the mouths of rivers. What feels eternal to us is simply movement too gradual for human eyes. The ocean's patience turns chaos into balance, showing that endurance is born of small acts repeated over immense spans of time. There are moments too when the clock seems to stop. Stand on a calm evening shore, and the hush between waves feels like the pause between heartbeats. The light stretches thin across the horizon. The water reflects both the day just past and the night yet to come. In that stillness, time folds inward. You are no longer separate from it. You are the second hand resting, the tide between its turning. You belong entirely to the present moment, which, in the language of the ocean, is eternity. The slow clock of the sea also runs within us. Our bodies carry the same salt, the same water. Our hearts beat in rhythmic waves of pressure and release. Our lungs rise and fall like tides. We too are instruments in the ocean's orchestra of time. Perhaps that is why the sound of waves soothes the mind. It synchronizes us to the rhythm we were made from, the rhythm we often forget. Think of how this rhythm touches everything. The pull of the moon stirs the oceans, which guide the winds, which carry the clouds that bring the rain. That rain feeds the rivers, which flow back to the sea. A single drop may take 1,000 years to complete its journey, but it will, inevitably, return. That is the promise written into the slow clock's face. All things come back in time. So, as you rest now, let your breathing find that ancient tempo. Inhale slowly, the tide rising. Exhale gently, the tide retreating. You are synchronized with something vast, something steady, something kind. Each breath you take marks another turn of the planet's hidden metronome. No need to measure, no need to hurry. The ocean keeps the time for you. When the sun rises again, the clock will continue, its hands made of moonlight and current, its gears of gravity and wind. It will go on marking days and ages with the same soft rhythm. And somewhere deep beneath the waves, the slow heartbeat of the world will keep pulsing, patient and unbroken. That sound, though you cannot hear it, is always there, the quiet ticking of eternity beneath the sea. To the human ear, the ocean can seem silent, yet beneath the waves, the sea is alive with sound, a symphony so constant, so varied, that it becomes the planet's own music. Every current, every movement, every living thing adds a note to its endless score. The song begins at the surface. Wind brushes against the water, plucking it like the string of an instrument. Each ripple creates a tiny pitch, too high for us to hear but woven into the larger melody. Raindrops strike like soft percussion, a million tiny drums. Far off, waves collide with cliffs and echo through stone chambers along the coast. It is a rhythm as old as the world itself, unwritten yet precise. Beneath the surface, the sound changes. Here it is lower, fuller, more measured. Currents move through layers of water as notes through an organ pipe, rising and falling in tone as temperatures shift. Sand and silt flow like soft brushstrokes over the seabed, whispering against coral and shell. The crack of a wave breaking over a reef travels for miles, muted but steady, a bass line in the deep. Life adds its own music. Shrimp click and crackle in reefs, their small pops forming a continuous rustle that scientists call the biological rain. Fish grind their teeth on coral or hum softly to each other in the dark. Whales compose songs that carry across entire oceans, deep voices that vibrate through the water like memory itself. Each species occupies its own frequency, so the sounds layer without clash, a perfect fluid harmony. Even silence has tone here. When the wind dies and the sea lies still, there remains a low hum, the constant motion of molecules in water. It is the quiet between notes, the pause that gives meaning to sound. Divers describe it as a feeling rather than a noise. The pressure of the deep settling over the skin, the heartbeat of earth made liquid. Human ears cannot catch most of this symphony, yet we sense it in other ways. The body responds to vibration long before it hears tone. Perhaps that is why the ocean's sound can soothe us, even when we cannot name what we hear. The rhythm matches our own pulse, breath, wave, pause. It draws the mind into its tempo, slowing thought, until awareness becomes drift, far beneath ships and storms. These sounds combine into a single continuous melody that never ends. It travels through the body of the planet, bouncing from ridge to trench, returning again and again in a gentle echo. To some creatures, it is a map, a way to find home. To others, it is comfort, a familiar voice in the dark. If you listen carefully on a quiet night by the shore, you might hear a trace of it. The long, low rumble of distant surf, the soft crackle of water against rock, the whisper that rises and fades with your breath. That is the ocean's symphony reaching you through air. It asks nothing. It demands nothing. It only reminds you to breathe with it, slow, steady, unbroken. So let your thoughts settle now. Let your mind drift into the rhythm of that music. Each wave a note, each pause a rest. The world is playing a lullaby for you, written in salt and motion. And beneath it all, the deep keeps time, the planet's own song of peace. Far below the surface, in the blue miles of open ocean, voices travel farther than sight. They move through water the way light moves through air, bending, shimmering, infinite. These are the songs of the giants, the voices of whales that carry across entire oceans, connecting one horizon to another in waves of sound. Whales speak in tones so low they roll through the body rather than the ear. Their voices can cross thousands of miles, passing from one pod to another. A slow conversation that might last for months. To us, it sounds like a haunting melody. Long notes that rise and fall, layered with pauses and sighs. To them, it is language, navigation, memory, love. Each call carries information about distance, depth, companionship, and the shape of the world around them. In the great stillness of the deep, the songs of whales become the sea's heartbeat. When a blue whale calls, its voice can reach 180 decibels, louder than a jet engine, yet so low and smooth, it feels like thunder rolling through the ribs. A single phrase can travel across an entire ocean basin, heard by others who have never met but still know the tune. It is communication beyond geography, a chorus that binds the living sea. Every species has its own song. The humpback whale composes elaborate ballads that shift each season. Males sing for hours, repeating patterns that evolve slowly over time, passing from one generation to the next like folklore. When a new melody spreads, entire populations adopt it, echoing the same tune across thousands of miles. No human culture has ever shared music so widely or so selflessly. For whales, sound is identity, to sing is to exist. Other giants use simpler notes. The grey whale hums softly to its calf as they travel together, a lullaby heard only a few meters away. Sperm whales trade sharp, coded clicks known as fine codassi, unique to each family line. Orcas whistle and pulse, coordinating hunts through tonal precision that borders on telepathy. Each sound has purpose, each silence, meaning the ocean is a cathedral, built not of stone, but of sound. For the listener, these voices awaken something deep inside, a recognition older than words. Perhaps it is because we too were born of the ocean, our own hearts echoing its rhythm. When we hear a whale's call, we are reminded of the vastness that still connects us. It feels both alien and familiar, like hearing the earth speak in a language we once knew, but forgot. Scientists have mapped these songs and discovered astonishing regularity. A single humpback motif can last for 20 minutes and repeat without error for hours. Within those patterns are shifts that mirror weather, migration, and even changes in ocean temperature. It's as though the whales are recording the climate in music, composing data in melody. Their symphony is both art and archive, the living memory of the sea written in sound waves. Once, before human noise filled the waters, these songs echoed freely. Today they must weave between the hum of ships and the distant thrum of engines. And yet they continue. Even in the noisiest places, whales adjust, shifting their pitch or rhythm so their voices can still be heard. Their resilience is its own kind of song, one that speaks of endurance, of patience, of harmony against odds. Imagine now the world as they know it, an ocean alive with invisible sound, the distance between continents bridged by melody. A mother calls to her calf in the Arctic. Her voice reaches an unseen listener in the tropics. A pod sings beneath the midnight sun. Another answers beyond the horizon. Between them stretches the vastness of the sea, and yet, through sound, they are together. As you breathe in now, think of that low vibration moving through you, the hum of connection traveling beneath awareness. It is the sound of belonging, the reminder that we are part of the same planet that sings through whales. Their music is not for us, and yet it heals us. It slows the mind, deepens the breath, restores the rhythm of stillness. The ocean hums, the giants sing, and somewhere within that harmony, the world listens. If you were to dive down into a coral reef and listen closely, you'd hear that the ocean is never truly quiet. Even in still water, a faint rustling fills the background, a constant crackle that seems to come from everywhere at once. It is not machinery or wind. It is life itself, the chorus of countless tiny creatures working, feeding, communicating in their secret ways. Among the most surprising of these musicians are snapping shrimp, sometimes called pistol shrimp. Each one is smaller than your finger, yet together they produce a sound that can drown out whales and passing boats. They create this noise not by shouting or drumming, but by moving faster than the eye can follow. With a sudden flick, a shrimp snaps its claw shut so rapidly that it creates a bubble. When that bubble collapses, it releases a pulse of sound so sharp, it can stun prey and echo across the reef. Multiply that by thousands, and you get the constant sizzling hum of life beneath the sea, a living static that never ends. This underwater crackle forms what scientists call the reef chorus. Every reef has its own signature rhythm, shaped by the creatures who live there. Crabs scrape food from stone, fish crunch coral with their teeth, urchins grind shells, and shrimp click in 100 different cadences. Together they form a soundscape, a blend of random and regular notes that hums day and night, changing subtly with the tide and the light. To human ears it can sound like a campfire, a soft rain on tin, or the gentle static of an old radio. To marine life, it is home. Young fish drifting through the open sea listen for these sounds. The crackle of a reef tells them where safety lies, where food is plentiful, where community awaits. They follow the noise back to the coral forests that raised their ancestors. In this way, the reef sings to its children, guiding them home. Even when the coral itself fades or dies, the faint echoes of that sound can linger, keeping the memory of the place alive. During the day, the chorus is bright and busy, but at night, when the reef darkens, the music changes. The clicks slow, the rhythms soften. Shrimp still snap, but more distantly, like stars winking through cloud. Fish murmur low notes, a hum of movement through narrow channels. The reef becomes a whispering city that never truly sleeps. It breathes and murmurs, an orchestra that has been performing for millions of years without pause. If you could record it and play it above the surface, you'd hear something that sounds both alien and familiar, a reminder that noise, like light, is life. Every crackle is energy, a transfer of power from one body to another, a conversation between worlds too small for us to see. These sounds knit the reef together just as heartbeats knit a body. Without them, silence would mean emptiness, an absence of being. So, as you rest, imagine that faint static of the sea, the soft, continuous crackle under layers of blue. It is not chaos, but harmony, not noise, but breathing. Each pop, each click, each distant snap is the ocean exhaling. Let that rhythm settle into your mind. Small lives creating vast sound, tiny hearts composing endless peace. In the darkness of the deep, the world hums quietly to itself, and everything is listening. In the deep ocean, sight fades long before sound. Sunlight vanishes a few hundred meters below the surface, swallowed by the dark. But sound keeps traveling. It moves through water faster than through air, and farther too, carrying messages across hundreds, even thousands of miles. In the realm of the sea, sound becomes vision, memory, and touch all at once. Every molecule of water vibrates when a sound passes through it. The waves of energy flow outward, rippling like invisible circles that never quite end. Whales hear them, fish feel them, even the seafloor responds. A resonance that ties every layer of the ocean together. For creatures that live in eternal night, these vibrations are a way of knowing the world. They read the sea not by light, but by echo. Light in water bends, scatters, fades. A beam from the surface becomes a haze, then disappears entirely. But a low sound, a hum or a call can travel endlessly, guided by a strange physics that belongs only to the ocean. Deep within the sea lies a layer where temperature and pressure balance perfectly. It's called the Sunsofar Channel, the sound fixing and ranging layer, and it acts like a tunnel for sound. Here, vibrations bounce between boundaries, trapped in a slow, steady journey around the world. A single whale's call released into that corridor might circle the globe before fading into silence. Scientists once used this channel to track submarines, but long before humans discovered it, whales had already mastered it. They knew how to send their songs across oceans, how to find one another by listening rather than looking. In this sense, whales were the first navigators of invisible highways, travelers through the unseen. Their world is not darkness, but sound shaped into meaning. Even small creatures understand this art. Shrimp sense the crackle of reefs. Fish detect the rhythm of distant surf. Some species of squid communicate with vibrations too subtle for our instruments. For them, the ocean is alive with signals, greetings, warnings, maps of motion, all transmitted through the steady hum of the water itself. For humans, this underwater symphony is almost beyond comprehension. We are creatures of light, used to seeing our way forward. In the sea, our senses fade, our eyes fail. But if you close your eyes and simply listen, the ocean opens again. The groan of shifting currents, the click of stones rolling in the surf, the low whisper of waves rubbing against one another. Each sound paints a picture as vivid as any sight. To hear the ocean is to see it in another language. And sound carries memory too. Every echo that passes through water is recorded in a way by its surroundings. Stone and sediment hold faint imprints of vibration. Researchers can trace old sounds like fossils, reading events that happened decades before. Storms leave sonic fingerprints in the deep. Earthquakes speak in low tremors that travel for hours after the shaking stops. Even melting ice has a sound, a fizzing, popping chorus that marks the slow conversation between sea and sky. At night, the ocean hums softly, a resonance born of countless overlapping tones. Some are from life, some from the earth itself, some from the pull of tides and currents. Together they weave a soundscape that is both endless and alive. It is not loud, but it is everywhere, a field of gentle pressure that holds the planet's heartbeat. If you listen to the ocean long enough, it changes you. It slows your thoughts, lengthens your breath, draws you into its rhythm. You begin to feel the quiet structure beneath the surface, the way sound builds order out of chaos, the way silence completes it. Even when you walk away from the shore, that hum follows you, subtle but constant, the reminder that you are made mostly of water and vibration. Sound travels farther than light here because the ocean remembers better than air. It keeps voices longer, carries stories farther, and in its patience, it teaches something profound, that not all understanding comes from what we see. Some truths must be felt deep in the bones, like music in the dark. So close your eyes for a moment. Hear that faint echo beneath everything, the sea whispering across the globe, the earth breathing through water. You are inside that sound now, part of its journey, a note in its endless song. And though the light fades, the voice of the ocean will carry on, soft and infinite, finding its way to every shore. Silence in the ocean is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of stillness. It's the pause between waves, the moment after a whale's song ends and before it begins again. It's the hush that follows the crash of surf, when air and water hold their breath together. True silence at sea is alive, a quiet so complete, it feels like listening to the heartbeat of the world. Beneath the surface, silence gathers slowly. It's found in the deep basins where currents weaken and even light cannot reach. Here, there are no engines, no wind, no storm. The pressure is enormous, yet the stillness feels weightless. If you could drift there, you would hear nothing but your own pulse and the faint whisper of your breath bubbling upward. It would not feel empty, it would feel infinite. Every diver knows the moment when noise fades, when you slip below the surface and the world above disappears. The sea takes your hearing and gives you something else in return, presence. You become aware of every small vibration, the gentle sway of water moving against your skin, the slow expansion of your lungs. The ocean teaches you to listen differently, not with the ears, but with the body. You begin to understand that silence is not absence, but awareness made whole. In some places, silence feels sacred. At dawn, on a calm sea, when the air is cool and the horizon blurs, even the birds seem to wait. The waves flatten to glass, the sky becomes a mirror. For a few breaths, there is no boundary between sea and sky, only stillness like a held note that never ends. This is the kind of silence sailors once called dead calm. But there is nothing dead about it. It is pure life in suspension, the ocean resting between heartbeats. Deep-sea explorers describe a silence so total it can be disorienting. Inside their vessels, surrounded by pressure and dark, they hear only the creak of metal and the faint hum of instruments. Outside, the sea presses close, a perfect void. Yet when they switch off their lights and wait, they often sense motion nearby, the pulse of unseen creatures, the shimmer of water rearranging itself. Even in the quietest places, the ocean moves. Its silence hums just beneath the threshold of sound. Silence also connects. It allows the sea to reset after storms, to settle the sediment and clear the water. It's in these pauses that coral spawns, fish gather, and life begins again. Just as rest renews the body, quiet renews the world. Without it, even the ocean would tire. In stillness, it regains balance, the equilibrium between sound and peace. When you stand on a beach at night, after the tide has turned, you can sometimes feel this silence before you hear it. The wind softens, the foam retreats, and for a heartbeat, everything stops. You can sense the vastness before you, invisible in the dark but impossibly near. It feels like being inside a pause too large for words. That's the ocean's truest silence. Not an ending, but a space between. A moment where time seems to exhale. So breathe in gently and let the stillness fill you. Breathe out softly and feel the world settle. This quiet is not something to escape from. It is something to return to. A reminder that even the sea must rest before it sings again. Sound is the compass of the sea. It moves where light cannot, guiding those who travel through darkness. Every echo, every vibration that ripples through the water carries direction, distance, and memory. To live in the ocean is to live by listening, to find your way not through sight, but through sound that bends and returns. Even in the loneliest reaches, nothing is truly lost. The sea keeps every whisper. For countless creatures, these echoes are survival. Dolphins send out clicks that bounce off objects and return as maps of the world around them. With every pulse, they see through sound, an art called echolocation. In the space of a single second, a dolphin can release hundreds of these clicks, each one painting a detailed image of coral fish or another dolphin nearby. It is a language built from reflection, a way of shaping silence into understanding. The ocean's vastness would be impossible to navigate without this gift. In the open water, where every direction looks the same, sound becomes the only constant. A returning echo tells you where you are. A pause tells you how far you've come. It is the sea's way of giving back to those who listen carefully enough. Whales use the same principle on a planetary scale. Their low calls travel across oceans, bouncing between layers of water that act as invisible corridors. Some scientists believe these giants use sound not only to communicate but also to navigate, mapping the seafloor, sensing magnetic fields, reading the tone of the world itself. Each note they release is an act of trust, sent into the dark in hope of an answer. And almost always, an answer comes. Even the earth itself sends echoes through the sea. When icebergs crack, their deep groans travel for hundreds of miles. Underwater volcanoes sing in rumbles and roars that move faster than any storm. A single earthquake beneath the seabed can send waves of sound spiraling across the planet. Not destructive, but resonant, as if the earth were tuning itself. Some of these tones are so low that no human ear can hear them, yet instruments record their pulse constantly, marking time like the ticking of a clock too vast to see. For sailors and explorers, echoes have always been companions. Long before technology, they learned to listen to the way waves broke against cliffs, how thunder rolled across bays, how the cry of a seabird changed when land was near. In fog, they rang bells or fired small cannons, listening for the delay in sound to tell them how far the shore lay hidden. The ocean itself would answer in seconds, a faint reflection of noise, the sea's way of saying, "Here I am." It was guidance born not from sight, but from faith in what returns. Modern ships still use echoes to find their path. Sonar sends out a pulse and waits for its reply, each returning wave painting a picture of the unseen world below, mountains, valleys, wrecks, and life. Submarines glide through the dark guided by sound alone, following the same principle that dolphins mastered millions of years ago. Even our science, for all its complexity, still listens to the ocean in the simplest way possible, by speaking softly and waiting for the sea to answer. There's something deeply human in that pattern. We too live by echoes. We send our words and thoughts into the world, into relationships, into time, and we wait for something to return. Sometimes it's love, sometimes it's love, sometimes only silence. But even silence is a kind of answer, a gentle reminder that listening matters more than noise. Like the ocean, we navigate by reflection. We find our way not through control, but through attention. To imagine the ocean's echoes is to imagine patience. A whale's call may take an hour to reach its listener. A dolphin's click may bounce through a coral maze and return in a fraction of a heartbeat. Each one is part of the same conversation, fast and slow, near and far, always moving, never ending. Even now, as you sit or lie in stillness, those echoes are traveling somewhere beneath the world, carrying with them the signatures of mountains and storms, of creatures and ships, of the earth breathing through water. When sound fades at last, when all that remains is stillness, the echo becomes memory. It lingers in the mind, shaping the quiet that follows. That is what the ocean teaches best, that even after the voice has gone, its trace remains. Nothing spoken into this world disappears completely. It ripples outward, softens, and returns in its own time. So as you rest, imagine those faint vibrations moving through the water, gentle, unbroken, each one a message on its way home. Feel them touch you, pass through you, continue on their journey. Somewhere, miles away, they will reach another listener and return again. And in that endless exchange of sound and silence, the lost are found, the far become near, and the world keeps whispering to itself, always saying, "I am here, I am listening, I am home." The ocean has a taste that never changes, whether you sip the spray on your lips or breathe in the mist that rises from a wave. You know it immediately. Salt, it lingers, sharp yet familiar, the same across centuries, across worlds. That salt is not just flavor, it is memory. Each grain carries the history of water's long conversation with the earth. When rain first fell upon the planet billions of years ago, it was pure and new, drawn from steam and cloud. As it touched rock, it began to gather traces of minerals: sodium, calcium, magnesium, chloride. The rivers carried these minerals to the sea, where they dissolved into the water and never left. For eons, the process continued, drop after drop, storm after storm, until the ocean became what it is now, a living solution, a body of water infused with the fingerprints of every mountain and plain it has ever touched. Salt gives the ocean its power to preserve and remember. It resists decay, keeps balance, and allows life to exist in delicate harmony. Inside every living cell, from plankton to whale to human, traces of that same salt remain. We carry the chemistry of the sea within us. Our blood holds almost the same proportion of sodium and chloride as seawater. When we cry, the tears that fall are echoes of the tide, reminders that the boundary between ocean and body is thin and ancient. To touch salt is to touch time. Crystals form where water evaporates, in tidal pools, in hidden caves, in shallow lagoons, leaving behind delicate geometric patterns, each one unique. The same salt that once floated in the ocean may someday harden into stone, only to dissolve again centuries later. It moves through endless cycles, sea to sky to rain to river, and back once more to the sea. It is both transient and eternal, like the rhythm of breath. For the creatures of the ocean, salt is both challenge and gift. They live in a world that would draw water out of them if they were not carefully balanced against it. Fish, corals, and even the smallest plankton regulate this exchange constantly, turning chemistry into art. When they succeed, life thrives. When the balance tips, entire ecosystems change. Salt defines where life can bloom and where it cannot. It is the ocean's quiet law, unseen yet absolute. Ancient sailors believed the sea was alive because it had flavor. Unlike any lake or river, they said its salt came from the tears of gods, or from the dust of stars fallen into water. Modern science has replaced myth with measurement, yet the wonder remains. Each grain of salt in the sea holds an origin story older than any myth, born in fire, weathered by time, carried across continents, and dissolved into the ocean's memory. The poetry of that truth is no less beautiful than legend. When you stand by the shore and taste the air, you are tasting history itself. Volcanoes, rivers, sunlight, and rain, all distilled into a single element that binds the planet together. Salt moves through clouds, through blood, through stone. It marks the passage of time not in years, but in cycles. Every storm that sweeps across the world returns a little more of it to the ocean, completing a journey that has no beginning and no end. As you breathe now, imagine that taste of salt on the wind. Feel it rest on your tongue, subtle but eternal. It is the same that touched the lips of the first creatures who ever crawled from the sea. The same that carried the scent of the ocean to every shore that has ever existed. Salt is the ocean's way of remembering itself, and through it remembering us. Let it remind you softly that you too are part of this chemistry, that within you flow the same minerals, the same story, the same patience. The sea has been here for 4 billion years, and still it whispers its name through every breath of salt air. Listen closely. It's saying, "Find you, I have not forgotten." There are nights when the sea forgets its darkness, when every wave that breaks becomes a ribbon of light, glowing with soft blue fire. Step into the surf, and your footprints shimmer. Let your hand trail through the water, and sparks follow your fingers. It feels like magic, but it is life, the chemistry of wonder unfolding beneath the surface. This light, called 15 bioluminescent sea, is born from creatures so small they are invisible in daylight. Tiny plankton float near the surface, waiting in the quiet dark. When something disturbs them, a wave, a fish, a passing boat, they release a faint electric glow. It's a defensive reaction, a flash meant to startle predators or attract others who feed on those predators. Yet to us, it looks like the sea-breathing starlight. The reaction that creates this glow is as simple as it is miraculous. Inside the cells of these organisms lies a molecule called luciferin. When it meets oxygen, light appears pure, cool, and blue. No heat, no flame. Just energy transformed into beauty. Millions of these microscopic beings flash together, their lights combining into a rolling wave of color that moves with the tide. A chemical conversation between life and water, visible only to those who happen to look at just the right moment. From the shores of the Maldives to the bays of Puerto Rico, people travel to see these glowing seas. They call them the fire of the ocean, the tears of the stars, the sea of lights. No two nights are ever the same. Some evenings, the glow is faint, just a whisper along the foam. On others, it burns bright enough to trace the shape of every current, every ripple, every creature that moves through the dark. The water becomes liquid moonlight, and for a few brief hours, the ocean reveals its secret art. In deeper water, other creatures wield this chemistry differently. Certain jellyfish pulse with light that shifts from blue to green. Some squid use it to vanish, countershading themselves with glimmers that match the faint glow above. In the darkest trenches, fish carry lanterns in their own flesh, tiny bulbs of living bacteria that guide them through the abyss. For them, light is language, a way to find, to hunt, to love. For the ocean, it is proof that beauty persists even where no sunlight dares to reach. Scientists studying this phenomenon have discovered that the color blue is not random. It travels farthest through water, cutting through darkness, like a whisper that refuses to fade. No other color can survive the depths quite so well. So the sea has chosen blue as its voice, calm, eternal, infinite. It is the hue of peace and distance, the color of dreams remembered but not spoken. To stand by a glowing shore is to witness time slowing down. Each flash lasts only a heartbeat, yet together they create something endless. A rhythm older than language, the earth itself breathing light into its water. Children laugh as their footprints flare and fade. Adults fall quiet, awed by the thought that they are walking among stars. In that moment, there is no line between sky and sea, no boundary between what is above and what is below. Only light and the quiet pulse of life that made it. As you breathe now, imagine the gentle blue surrounding you, each exhale stirring faint sparks, each inhale gathering their glow. It doesn't ask to be understood, only to be felt. Like the ocean, it simply exists, luminous in its stillness. And when the light fades, the darkness that returns feels softer, as if touched by memory. For somewhere beneath the surface, unseen but never gone, the sea still glows. Quietly, patiently, forever blue. The sky and sea have been speaking to each other since the beginning of time. Their conversation is invisible, but it shapes everything we know. Rain, wind, weather, and life itself. Every cloud that drifts above us begins as a whisper rising from the ocean's surface. The sea, in its quiet labor, builds the sky. When sunlight warms the water, billions of molecules break free. They lift into the air, carrying with them tiny traces of salt and organic matter, invisible gifts from the waves. Each molecule begins a long journey upward, rising through layers of air cooler and thinner than before. They gather, joining dust and microscopic particles, binding together in small clusters. These clusters grow until they become droplets, and those droplets become clouds. From the shore, we see them as white and weightless, drifting lazily across blue. But inside, each one is heavy with the ocean's breath. The average cloud, though soft in appearance, can hold millions of pounds of water suspended in air. It floats not by defiance, but by balance, an elegant equation between gravity and heat, earth and sky, sea and sun. It's easy to think of clouds as separate from the ocean, but they are simply another form of it, water in exile, waiting to return home. They drift across continents, shedding rain and snow, filling rivers and lakes, feeding forests and fields. Eventually, every drop finds its way back to the sea, closing the circle. This exchange never ends. It is the heartbeat of the planet. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. A rise and return of everything. Within that endless movement lies chemistry more complex than any machine. Tiny particles released by plankton and sea spray act as seeds around which droplets form. Without these microscopic catalysts, many clouds would never exist. The ocean, in this way, does not just supply water, it supplies the very building blocks of the sky. Salt, sulfur, organic molecules, all drift upward, shaping the weather that will one day fall as rain. Every storm begins as peace, a shimmer of vapor over calm water, unseen yet full of promise. When enough heat gathers, the rising air forms towers of clouds so tall they touch the stratosphere. Lightning flickers within, the atmosphere speaking back to the sea in light instead of sound. Then, as the clouds release their weight, rain falls, softening the land, cooling the air, and feeding the currents below once again. Each drop that touches your skin carries the ocean's memory. It has traveled through mist, through wind, through time, only to return to where it began. To watch this cycle is to witness patience perfected. The sea does not hurry to create clouds. It simply breathes them into being. It gives, it waits, it receives again. Its rhythm is circular, not linear, an eternal loop that hums beneath all life. Even when we cannot see it, the exchange continues. Mist rises from distant waves, unseen by any shore, joining the silent architecture of the atmosphere. At sunset, when the sky burns gold and crimson, you are seeing sunlight caught in vapor that was once deep ocean blue. In this, the sea and sky are not separate realms, but two halves of the same thought. The sea dreams clouds into existence, and the sky returns them as rain. Their dialogue fills every breath we take, every sip of water we drink. It is an unbroken conversation, soft and vast, the planet speaking to itself in the language of balance. As you breathe now, imagine that same exchange happening inside you. Your lungs fill, then empty, mirroring the ocean's rise and fall. Inhale, the sea becomes sky. Exhale, the sky returns to sea. It is the same cycle, the same music, the same eternal rhythm, and like the clouds above, you are part of it. A brief, beautiful shape in the endless breath of the world. Every grain of soil, every leaf, every living thing owes something to the chemistry of the sea. The ocean is not only the cradle of life, it is the pantry of the planet, feeding the earth quietly, endlessly. Its waters hold the minerals that sustain every tree and blade of grass, every seed and cell, every breath that draws oxygen from green things. When rivers run to the ocean, they carry with them the dust of mountains, calcium, magnesium, iron, phosphorus. The sea receives them, dissolving their edges, blending their essence into its own vast reservoir. Some of these elements settle into the deep, locked away for ages in sediment. Others rise again in invisible plumes, carried upward by currents that never rest. Wherever the ocean stirs, it redistributes these gifts, feeding life at the surface, seeding the air with nutrients that will one day drift back to land. In the open sea, where the blue appears endless and barren, the smallest forms of life depend on this delicate chemistry. Microscopic plankton, the invisible forests of the ocean, need iron and nitrogen to grow. They bloom where the deep water wells upward, turning empty expanses into green meadows that float upon the surface. Those blooms feed fish, whales, seabirds, the entire living web built upon the ocean's quiet generosity. A handful of water contains more life, more motion than all the forests of the land combined. When the wind blows across the sea, it gathers salt and dust, carrying particles high into the sky. Eventually, these fall as rain, scattering minerals back onto the continents. The ocean feeds the land feeds the sea, and together they nourish everything that breathes. The minerals that drift through clouds and rivers are the same that shape coral skeletons and mountain stone. They are the handwriting of time written in chemistry. Even our bodies are part of this exchange. The calcium in our bones once lay at the bottom of the sea. The iron in our blood once traveled through plankton and sediment. The iodine in our cells was drawn from seaweed, drifting on a current centuries ago. We are walking proof that the ocean shares what it creates. It moves through us, invisibly, but completely, the same way it moves through clouds, soil, and rain. On the coasts where waves crash against cliffs, the ocean continues its quiet work. Each impact breaks down stone into sand and dust, releasing more minerals back into the cycle. What seems like destruction is actually renewal. The sea grinds, dissolves, and gives. Its patience reshapes the world grain by grain, molecule by molecule, until every living thing has received its share. Sometimes, when sunlight strikes the surface just right, the ocean glimmers with tiny golden flecks, particles of iron, silica, and salt suspended in motion. They drift upward, fall again, and drift once more. From these simple elements, the planet builds its complexity, and though we rarely notice it, we are surrounded by their influence. In the green of leaves, the red of our blood, the breath of our lungs. So when you look out over the ocean, remember that its chemistry runs through everything. Every drop of water, every living thing is part of the same quiet equation. The sea dissolves and distributes, gives and renews. It asks for nothing but balance, nothing but time. In its depths lies the nourishment of worlds, a generosity too vast to measure, too constant to end. And as long as it moves, so will we, carried by its unseen tide, fed by the same minerals that began it all. If the earth were a body, the ocean would be its skin, regulating warmth, balancing extremes, and keeping everything within it alive. No other element moderates the planet's heartbeat, quite like water. It stores heat when the world grows too warm and releases it when the air begins to cool. Without this vast, quiet system, the difference between day and night, between summer and winter. The sea is the planet's great equalizer, its silent, breathing thermostat. The secret lies in the chemistry of water itself. Every molecule of HIO can absorb and release enormous amounts of heat without changing temperature quickly. It holds warmth like memory. Patient, steady. Sunlight pours into the ocean during the day, sinking slowly beneath the surface. That energy is stored within its depths, hidden away, released only when the air above begins to lose its warmth. While the land cools quickly, the ocean keeps breathing heat into the sky, keeping the balance. This constant exchange creates the climates we know. Warm currents sweep from the equator to the poles, carrying energy that softens the edge of winter. Cold waters flow back in return, calming the heat of tropical storms. Even the gentlest breeze that touches your skin has likely passed across miles of ocean, borrowing its temperature. Every coastline, every cloud, every storm carries the imprint of this subtle chemistry. Without the ocean's patience, Earth would be a place of violent contrasts. Deserts would scorch by day and freeze by night. Seasons would swing wildly. Forests, rivers, and fields would struggle to survive the sudden shifts. But the sea absorbs our planet's restlessness, turning chaos into rhythm. It transforms light into motion, motion into balance, balance into peace. Deep beneath the surface, another process works quietly to maintain stability. Cold, dense water sinks near the poles, while warmer water rises in the tropics. This slow circulation, a global conveyor of heat, links every ocean together in a continuous breath. A single parcel of water might spend 1,000 years making its journey, traveling through darkness and light, cold and warmth. Through that journey it carries memory of storms, of seasons, of the sun's touch from centuries past. Even the color of the ocean reflects its role. Blue is not just beauty, it is function. That shade comes from the way water absorbs red and yellow light, keeping much of the sun's energy within. The ocean's surface glows with reflected sky, but beneath, it quietly gathers heat, storing it like a soft pulse for the planet. When clouds form and rain falls, some of that stored warmth rises into the atmosphere again, where it becomes wind, weather, and life. Every breeze that moves across the earth begins, in part, as sunlight stored in the sea. But even balance can be fragile. As our world warms, the ocean works harder to absorb the excess heat. Its surface grows warmer, its chemistry shifts. Currents slow or change direction, echoing the subtle strain of a system stretched too far. Yet still it endures. Still it does what it has always done, smoothing the sharp edges of change, giving the world time to adapt. The sea has known ice ages and fire, calm and storm, and it has always found a way to return to equilibrium. To stand at the edge of the ocean is to feel that steadiness. The air smells of salt and energy. The water hums with the rhythm of temperature itself. Each wave carries warmth gathered from faraway places, spreading it gently across the surface of the world. It is the same rhythm that beats in your veins, the balance between heat and calm, between motion and rest. So as you breathe now, imagine the ocean doing the same. Inhale, sunlight sinking beneath the surface. Exhale, warmth rising to touch the wind. A global breath, unhurried and infinite. The planet's oldest wisdom, spoken without words, keep the balance. Hold the warmth, and move always with grace. Every drop of rain that touches the earth begins with a wave. It might rise from a calm morning sea or the back of a storm. It might lift from tropical heat or from icy polar waters. But the origin is always the same, a single shimmer of evaporation, a small sigh of the ocean returning to the sky. In this quiet transformation, the planet renews itself. When sunlight warms the surface of the sea, water begins to change form. Invisible vapor drifts upward, carrying within it tiny fragments of salt and life. Each particle that leaves the ocean's skin is a seed of something greater. As the vapor climbs, it cools and gathers, forming droplets that join together in clusters of white cloud. In time, they grow heavy enough to fall again, and so the ocean rises, becomes sky, and returns as rain. Its oldest ritual repeated every day, everywhere. This cycle is not simple repetition, it is conversation. As water evaporates, it carries the ocean's chemical whispers, sodium, iodine, even microscopic cells of plankton. When rain falls back to earth, it delivers those same elements to forests and soil, feeding rivers and roots. The sea nourishes the land through the language of weather. And when rivers run back toward the sea, they carry new minerals, new stories, completing the dialogue. The ocean speaks, the sky responds, the earth listens. Sometimes the rain comes soft, a fine mist that blurs the horizon and merges the sky with the water below. In those moments, the world feels seamless. Boundaries erased. You can no longer tell where the sea ends or where the clouds begin. It is all one breath, exhaled and drawn again. To stand in that kind of rain is to stand inside the ocean's memory, feeling it return home drop by drop. At other times, the ocean's return is dramatic, storms that drum the surface with fury, releasing energy stored for weeks in tropical heat. Each flash of lightning, each roar of thunder is part of the same exchange, warmth becoming motion, motion becoming rain. Even these tempests, violent as they seem, are acts of balance. Through them, the sea cools itself and shares its energy with the sky, redistributing life across the world. When those raindrops land on a forest leaf, on a field of grass, on your open hand, you are touching something that has traveled through every element of the earth. It has been liquid, vapor, and cloud. It has known pressure, light, gravity, and silence. It may have fallen once upon ancient ferns, frozen in glaciers, melted into rivers, and returned 1,000 times. Every drop of rain is a traveler older than time itself, and yet it always finds its way back, no matter how far it drifts, no matter how long it lingers as snow or mist or river, it returns to the sea. This is the essence of water, its loyalty to motion, its refusal to end. It teaches, in its endless return, the meaning of patience. Nothing is ever truly lost. It simply changes form until the cycle begins again. In certain places, the connection between rain and waves is visible in one glance. Monsoon winds rise from warm seas, carry clouds across the land, then turn and fall again as rain into the same water that created them. The ocean and sky chase each other endlessly, never breaking their bond. It is this relationship that cools deserts, fills rivers, and sustains the rhythm of life for every creature on Earth. So when you hear rain at night, tapping gently against windows, whispering through trees, remember that it is the voice of the ocean returned to you. The waves are speaking softly through each droplet, telling stories of their long journey. The sound is comfort itself, ancient and familiar, the world tucking itself in for rest. As you breathe, feel that rhythm, the rise of vapor, the fall of rain, the steady pulse of exchange. You are part of it. Your breath, your heartbeat, your sleep all move in time with that cycle. The rain falls, the sea waits, and balance is restored once more. The sky, the ocean, and the living earth, one endless circle of giving. Long before maps, before compasses, before the idea of continents even existed, people learned to trust the ocean. They listened to its rhythm, watched the flight of birds, read the color of clouds. To them, the sea was not a barrier, but a bridge, a wide blue road connecting the known and the unknown. The first mariners were guided not by instruments, but by intuition, by the pull of tides and the glitter of stars reflected on black water. These voyagers set out in canoes carved from trees, in rafts woven from reeds, in vessels no longer than a house. They carried fire, food, stories, and faith, the belief that beyond the horizon lay another shore. Each wave they crossed was a question. Each sunrise was an answer. They followed the songs of the wind and the curve of migrating birds, learning how the ocean spoke through signs too subtle to name. A change in the swell meant land was near. The smell of wet stone on the breeze told them when to turn. To navigate the sea, they first had to listen to it. The Polynesians were among the greatest of these early navigators. Thousands of years ago, they crossed the Pacific, linking islands scattered across distances that still astonish modern sailors. Without maps or modern tools, they memorized the stars, hundreds of them, each marking a direction, a story, a memory of home. At night, they steered by constellations. By day, they read the movement of swells, feeling with bare feet the subtle rhythm of currents beneath their canoes. They knew the ocean as intimately as we know our streets. Their journeys were not acts of conquest but communion, a dialogue between humankind and the water that made it. In the Indian Ocean, Arab sailors learned to read the monsoon winds, traveling with the seasons from East Africa to India and back again. In the Mediterranean, Phoenicians charted coastlines and followed trade winds that carried voices and ideas between distant ports. Each civilization left echoes, roots, names, myths, all shaped by their relationship with the sea. For every person who gazed out across the water, there was both fear and faith, the knowledge that the same tide that could swallow them also carried them forward. The ocean rewarded their courage with connection. Islands that might have remained isolated became linked through shared language and song. Goods, art, and stories flowed like currents between cultures. Even today, words from those ancient tongues drift in our languages, traces of a time when the horizon was both teacher and test. Every port, every harbor, still hums with that same ancient pulse, the meeting of human hope and the sea's vast patience. But these early voyagers also understood humility. They knew that the ocean was alive, unpredictable, and worthy of reverence. Before setting sail, they prayed, offered food, or whispered to the waves. They believed the sea had moods, and that respect was as vital as skill. When storms came, they did not curse the water. They waited, anchored by faith that calm would return. Their survival depended not on conquering nature, but on learning its rhythm. Even now, modern ships cross the same routes those mariners once traveled. GPS replaces starlight, engines replace oars, but the essence remains the same: trust in the water, trust in the journey. Somewhere deep within every sailor, ancient or modern, there lingers the same quiet thrill, the same soft fear, the same whisper of destiny that begins when land disappears from view. To imagine those first voyages is to remember what courage truly is, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to set forth anyway. Each paddle stroke, each gust of wind, was a heartbeat in the story of humanity's partnership with the sea. And though millennia have passed, the ocean still carries their echoes. The path they carved remains invisible but eternal, a trail of trust, floating on water and memory. So as you breathe now, imagine that journey, the smell of salt and wood, the stars shimmering in silence, the slow rocking of a boat, guided only by hope. Somewhere within that motion lies the same rhythm as your heartbeat, the same rhythm as the tide. For all our maps and machines, we are still travelers, following currents of wonder, guided by the same old sea. Every civilization that lived by the ocean listened to its voice, and in time began to answer. They built stories from its rhythms, gave names to its moods, and filled its depths with gods and spirits. The sea, vast and unknowable, became the mirror of imagination. Its storms were tempers, its calms were blessings, its tides were the slow breathing of something divine. To the Greeks, the ocean was ruled by Poseidon, the restless god who could summon tempests with the strike of his trident, or calm them with a glance. To the Polynesians, Tangaroa was the father of all fish, the eternal keeper of balance. In Norse tales, the waves were the realm of Fungir and Arisen, a husband and wife whose moods dictated whether sailors would find safe passage or sink into the deep. Every coast, every culture, shaped its own version of the same truth: the sea is alive, and we are guests within its domain. In these stories, humans were never masters of the ocean. They were participants in its mystery, dependent on its mercy, bound by its rhythm. Fishermen whispered prayers before casting their nets. Sailors carried offerings of bread or wine to the waves. The myths gave meaning to uncertainty, comfort in the face of something too vast to control. They reminded each generation that respect is a kind of safety, that reverence itself is navigation. Across the world, myths of creation begin with water. In Hindu tradition, the god Vishnu sleeps on an infinite ocean until the next world is ready to be born. In ancient Egypt, the first mound of land rises out of primeval waters, carrying the promise of life. Even in the book of Genesis, before there was light, there was the deep, the void of water waiting to be shaped. It seems humanity has always felt that existence itself began with the sound of waves, and perhaps that instinct is not wrong. Science now tells us that life began in the sea, in shallow pools warmed by sunlight, in the chemistry of salt and mineral. Our myths, in their poetry, were remembering something real, that we came from the ocean, and to it we remain connected. Each tide that rolls across the sand is a whisper of our beginning, an echo of the first heartbeat. Over centuries, the sea's legends evolved with our journeys. Wherever humans went, they carried old stories and gathered new ones. Mermaids who sang to sailors, spirits that guarded coral reefs, monsters that waited beyond the horizon. Every tale carried the same emotion, awe. Even the creatures of fear, the kraken, the leviathan, the storm-born serpent, were reminders that the ocean was greater than us, that in its depths lived truths we were not yet ready to name. But the most enduring myth is not of danger or conquest. It is of return. In every culture, there are stories of souls crossing the sea after death, of a final voyage to a place of peace. The ocean, both boundary and bridge, became the path between worlds. Perhaps this belief endures because, deep down, we sense its wisdom. The sea takes everything, but it also gives everything back. transformed, renewed, infinite. So as you rest now, think of those old storytellers watching moonlight on water, shaping wonder into words. Their voices are gone, but their echoes still roll with the waves. The ocean carries their myths like memories, whispering them through tides and storms. And maybe, in your dreams tonight, when you hear the faint sound of surf, you'll catch a fragment of one. A reminder that the sea has always been our oldest story, and we are still learning how to listen. There are places where the ocean feels less like scenery and more like a mirror. Its surface reflects not only clouds and stars, but everything we bring to it: joy, grief, wonder, restlessness. To stand by the sea is to see yourself returned in motion. Its rhythm steadies your pulse. Its silence absorbs your thoughts. Perhaps that is why we go there when words fail us. The sea understands without speaking. We have always turned to water for comfort. Children fall quiet when they hear the hush of waves. The sick sleep easier to the rhythm of surf. Even those who have never seen the ocean carry an image of it inside. The idea of vastness, of peace beyond edges. It is written into our biology, encoded in the salt of our blood and the ebb of our breath. We are born from water, and some part of us never leaves it. When you sit by the shore and listen, you can feel the boundary between body and world grow thin. Each wave moves like a thought, arriving, lingering, retreating. They do not rush, they do not resist. They teach us that release is not weakness, it is motion, the art of letting go. Grief loosens under that rhythm, anxiety finds its pace, even joy feels quieter, deeper, more complete. Across cultures, poets have described the sea as both heart and healer. In its vastness, we see our smallness not as insignificance, but as relief. The horizon reminds us that the world extends far beyond our worries. Its patience becomes our own. We breathe slower, we listen longer. We remember that stillness is not the absence of motion, but the presence of trust. The chemistry of calm has its science too. The negative ions released by crashing waves subtly lift mood and ease tension. The sound frequencies of surf mirror the resting rhythm of the human heart. Even the smell of salt air, that blend of ozone, seaweed, and sunlight, quiets the nervous system. The sea's therapy is not imagined. It is real, elemental, measurable. It works not by force, but by reminding the body of its origin. And yet, there is something deeper than biology at work. When we stand before the ocean, we confront scale. Its horizon erases the lines that separate one life from another, one moment from the next. The mind expands to match its distance. Our worries, though not gone, lose their sharpness. The sea invites us to feel small in the most generous way, to surrender the illusion of control and rest in belonging. Sometimes after storms, the water lies calm again, glassy and silent. It seems to say that even turbulence can end in clarity. The sea never holds its anger, it releases, renews, returns to balance. That lesson drifts into us without effort. Whatever storms we carry within, they too will pass. The tide will smooth them, just as it smooths stone. In old stories, the ocean was a teacher of humility. Now, it teaches healing. People walk its shores not for conquest, but for restoration. They come seeking the kind of quiet that only vastness can offer, the quiet that reminds us we are part of something immeasurable. Each breath, each heartbeat, each breaking wave adds to the same pulse of life that has always been here. The sea's voice hums softly in the background of every moment, asking nothing, offering everything. As you rest now, imagine yourself standing at the edge of that calm water. The horizon stretches endlessly ahead, but there is no pressure to go anywhere. The air tastes clean, the sand is cool beneath your feet. With every wave, something in you settles. Your thoughts drift out, returning lighter, quieter, more at peace. The ocean shapes you as it has shaped the world, patiently, gently, completely. And as the tide moves in and out, you realize that its rhythm has become your own. The ocean, for all its vastness, has always listened to us. It receives everything we give, our warmth, our winds, our stories, our silence. Now, in our time, it speaks back more clearly than ever before. Its tone has changed, not angry, but weary. If you listen closely, you can hear it, a deeper sigh in the rhythm of the waves, a shift in the voice of the tide. Over centuries, we have taken from the sea without always noticing what it gives in return. We have sailed it, mapped it, fished it, studied it, even worshipped it. And though its patience is immense, even patience has texture. the quiet resistance of balance disturbed. The chemistry of the ocean is changing, warmer, more acidic, more uncertain. Coral bleaches where once it blazed with color, currents alter their paths, carrying warmth to places unaccustomed to it. The sea absorbs the excess as it always has, but it is growing heavy with the effort. And yet, even in this, there is no bitterness. The ocean does not punish. It adapts. It continues to circulate, to breathe, to sustain. It reminds us, gently, endlessly, that everything is connected. A drop of carbon in the air becomes acid in the sea. A shift in temperature alters the dance of plankton, and with it, the rhythm of all life that follows. This is not a lesson of fear, but of interdependence. When the sea changes, we change too, for we are made of the same water. In shallow bays where mangroves grow, new roots reach farther into the tide, anchoring the land against storms. In the deep, whales still migrate, carrying warmth from one hemisphere to another. The sea is adjusting, improvising within its own vast intelligence. Life continues, adapting, transforming, finding ways to endure. Even coral, when given calm and time, begins to recolor, a sign that healing is possible. The ocean teaches us resilience not by denial, but by grace. For those who live close to it, the changes are visible in small, intimate ways. Fishermen notice different fish returning with the seasons. Shores shift. Storms sound deeper, their voices slightly altered. But the beauty remains. The sun still sets across the horizon in gold. The moon still lifts tides with quiet command. The ocean is not vanishing, it is evolving, and inviting us to evolve with it. Listening, truly listening, is the beginning of understanding. We listen not to fear, but to remember that care is a form of belonging. To respect the sea is to remember that it breathes for us, that every second breath we take comes from oxygen born in its plankton. It feeds us, shields us, carries our histories in its depths. If it changes, it is only asking us to pay attention, to restore what we have forgotten: partnership. We are not separate from the sea. We are its continuation, walking on land. Scientists now listen through instruments, hydrophones that record whale songs, sensors that track rising temperatures, satellites that watch the dance of currents from above. Through these tools, we hear the planet's heartbeat more clearly than ever before. What we learn from that rhythm is not despair, but possibility. The ocean is still alive, still strong, still vast enough to recover, if we give it time and care. Its patience is long, and so must ours be. And perhaps this is the lesson hidden in its voice. Change is not the end. It is another tide, another rhythm, another chance to begin again. The sea has endured meteors, ice ages, and fire. It will endure us too, but it would rather endure with us. It does not seek silence, it seeks harmony. So listen tonight, not for warning, but for wisdom. Hear the slow murmur of waves beyond the noise of the world. They are still saying what they have always said. Fundy balance can be restored. Calm will return. The tide will always find its way home. If we learn to listen with the same patience the ocean shows, we might find that what it needs most is simple remembrance, gratitude, and gentleness. As you breathe now, imagine the sea breathing with you. Inhale, the ocean gathering sunlight. Exhale, the sea releasing peace into the air. Together, you form the same rhythm, the same hope. The ocean's voice is still here, waiting. All we must do is listen. The sea has always been a place where dreams drift. For as long as humans have watched the horizon, we've sent our hopes sailing across it. Bottled messages, paper boats, whispered wishes cast into the foam. Something in the movement of water invites imagination. It feels alive, responsive, capable of carrying thoughts farther than we could ever go ourselves. When we dream beside the ocean, those dreams seem to rise and fall with the waves. At night, the surface becomes a mirror for the stars. Constellations shimmer in the dark water, and for a moment, sky and sea exchange roles. The heavens seem to float below you, and you, small, breathing, curious, are suspended between them. Every reflection trembles and reforms, as though the universe itself is dreaming. If you stand quietly enough, you might feel that rhythm move through you, the same gentle rocking that once lulled our ancestors to sleep on open boats, the same rhythm that rocks the tides and the heart alike. There's a reason we find peace in that motion. Water remembers movement better than anything else. Each wave is the echo of another, born somewhere far away. When you hear the sea, you're listening to time itself, energy passed from wind to water to shore, transformed but never lost. Our dreams follow the same law. We release them, not knowing where they will land, but trusting they will travel, carried by unseen currents. Sometimes they return, changed but intact. Sometimes they go on, merging with others, becoming something larger than we imagined. Artists, sailors, and wanderers have always turned to the sea to find what language cannot express. They write of it, paint it, sing to it. But even then, they admit that the ocean always holds something back, an unspoken remainder, a quiet that humbles and heals. Maybe that's why so many stories begin with water and end with it too. It's not just the setting, it's the silence between words, the place where the heart goes to listen. Dreams need that kind of silence to take shape. Children instinctively understand this. They build small boats from leaves or paper and send them drifting, believing they carry secret messages to somewhere meaningful. Adults, though less certain, still do the same in their own ways, lighting candles on rivers, scattering ashes into the tide, closing their eyes when waves touch their feet. The gesture says what words cannot. I remember, I release, I hope. Water, patient and eternal, carries each offering away with the same care it gives to the smallest pebble. Dreams floating on water are not bound by destination. They are acts of faith, of surrender, of belonging. To trust the ocean with your wishes is to accept that you are part of something vast and tender, that your voice, your longing, your story will become part of the tide that connects us all, and that even if you never see the result, the motion itself is enough. As you breathe now, imagine your thoughts as small lights resting on the water. Each inhale brightens them. Each exhale lets them drift a little farther, glowing softly under a sky of reflected stars. No need to hold them. The ocean will. It knows what to do with dreams. They will travel, they will rest, and in time, they will return as calm. The ocean never truly sleeps, but it does know rest. Even in darkness, when the world above has grown quiet, its waves continue to move, slower now, gentler, as if the sea itself were dreaming. Beneath the surface, light fades into blue, blue into black, and the deep sighs softly against the edges of the earth. Everything that stirs within it begins to slow, currents, creatures, the steady hum of unseen life. This is the ocean's night, not silence, but peace. Imagine drifting here, weightless and safe, held by water that stretches farther than thought. Above you, moonlight ripples on the surface, its glow bending and folding with each wave. It feels like breathing through light. The rise, the fall, the pause between. The world above and the world below merge until there is no separation, only rhythm. You are floating in the oldest cradle, the same one that once rocked every life that ever began. The water is cool against your skin, its pulse steady and kind. Each wave that passes lifts you slightly, then lets you settle again. It asks nothing, demands nothing. It simply supports you, as it has supported everything for billions of years. The same tide that laps the shore tonight will touch another beach tomorrow, carrying your breath within it. Everything is connected, nothing is lost. In the quiet of the deep, even memory softens. Thoughts that once pressed heavy against the mind drift away like bubbles, rising until they vanish into the dark. What remains is stillness, the kind that feels alive. Fish sleep in coral shadows, whales drift in slow spirals, plankton pulse, faintly like stars. Every heartbeat under the water is in time with your own. This is the sound of rest shared across worlds. Far away, waves brush against sand with a whisper so soft, it almost disappears. They carry stories with them, of sunlight, of storms, of ships and islands and people standing quietly at the shore. They carry everything, yet remain light. This is the sea's secret. It holds all that has ever been, and still it moves freely, endlessly, without weight. You are part of that freedom. Now the air moves in and out of your lungs like the tide against stone. Each breath a wave, each pause, the moment before it returns. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be carried, no distance left to cross. Only this, the pulse of the ocean, steady and sure, reminding you that you belong to something vast, kind, and patient. Above, the moon drifts slowly across the horizon, a silver eye closing over the water. Stars shimmer faintly on the surface, then fade into shadow. The sea exhales. and so do you. Together, you sink into the same rhythm, calm, constant, endless. Soon the sound of the waves begins to blur with your breathing. The surface, the sky, the world, all soften into one continuous quiet. Sleep rises from beneath like a gentle current, cool and inviting. Let it take you the way the tide takes sand, effortlessly, completely. You are home now beneath the waves, within the breath of the earth. And as you drift deeper into rest, remember the ocean will still be here when you wake. The waves will return, the light will rise, and life will begin again. But for now, there is nothing more to do. Let go, breathe slowly. The sea is holding you. Good night beneath the waves. The tide will keep your dreams safe until morning.